Ba-da-ba-da-da-da. Thank you, everybody, for coming in today, this Sunday, each and every Sunday. Tim and I were just reflecting on how grateful we are to be able to talk about all this nerdy stuff with all of y'all, and it's some sort of official thing that we do. It's a good feeling. So we appreciate y'all, and we will try to live up to the high expectations and standards that we have set around here that have been set by our patrons, who, if you could see scrolling across the 3D rendered Hightower. Folks, we wouldn't have a 3D rendered Hightower if it weren't for these patrons and folks like you. So thank you, thank you. And here's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about magic horns. Oh man, not again. No, what we're going to do is we're going to have the final word. We're going to solve the 3-horn problem here. Hornicopia. We are going to poll you guys, the chat, and ask you what you think each horn will do, who you think is going to blow it, and all that kind of stuff. So I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys think and what Tim thinks. And welcome to my Plankytown Hightower Studios here atop the Hightower. I am always delighted to be here, like I said, and I have my friend with me, Gray Waist Tim, he's right here. There he is. Tim, oh, you're not playing air guitar cat today. We can actually see your cat.
Yep. Not wearing black, so Damon's actually showing up. Hi, I'm Gray Waist Tim, and this is Prince Damon of the Gray Waist, my lovely co-host and the producer.
We love your co-host. There's none like. We have never seen. It's like, oh, there it is, Hornicopia. Isn't that nice? Yes, we're going to talk about all 3 horns. Like I said, I got a series of poll questions so I can see what you guys think about these damn horns. I have talked myself in circles with them. And, of course, I want to get Gray Waist Tim's take on the horns. But we're also going to talk Corlys Velaryon's 9 Voyages and a couple other random topics that I got from the Discord, because that's what we do. And if you want to join our Discord, of course, you can get a link, an invite by either signing up for Patreon, like all the kind folks whose names you just saw, or with the join button below, the YouTube join button. That'll make you a channel member squisher. Your name is highlighted in green with the cool squisher icon. You get 1 free super chat per month, and you support the channel. So, with that said, what kind of shirt you wearing, Tim?
Well, we're talking Corlys, and Corlys essentially goes to Innsmouth, so I'm wearing my Welcome to Sunny Innsmouth shirt. Stay for the seafood, never leave.
You're wearing your Innsmouth shirt because horns go in mouths. They go in the in's mouth. Oh, look at that, Tim. You have everything covered. You have a cooler horn than me, and you have an Innsmouth shirt, and you have a cat. I should just hang it up.
Damon, are you going to blow the horn of winter? Are you going to summon White Walker?
She's like, this is a nice scratching post, actually. Oh, let me just get that spot. Oh, yeah. And so, yeah, this is what we're doing today. Hey there, friends. And Tim, I also do want to say I appreciate you. You are a dynamo. We always appreciate your contributions. And I would be bored if I was just giving my own opinions here all the time. So I really do appreciate you and Estella and Sean and everyone else that brings their different takes to the show. And might have a very cool special guest next week. I can't confirm yet, but come to the stream next week and you'll see. I do have the horned helmet here, but it's a little warm here in Plankytown Studios, and so get your fix. I'm not gonna wear it, but I'll keep this on screen. How's that? We'll put it right here. There we go. Right, like that. Maybe. There you go. That's cool. We like that. So, Tim, how are you doing? Did you watch my video?
Yes, I did. I also want to give a shout out to Estella Graves because I watched her video earlier today too. So yeah, I've done my homework for this. I have my own takes on this supposed Horde of Winter that may or may not be in Sam's possession.
Yeah, and thanks for mentioning Estella. She did an awesome video where she did a 3-way comparison between Melisandre and Helena and Alice Rivers, and she cooked pretty hard. And her Melisandre cosplay is even better than before, so do go check that out if I can get a mod to drop that in. Tim, you're working on a big ET script, right?
Yes, because the other part of this show of today's Westeros talks, after when we're done with Horns, we're going to be talking about some of the animated shows. There are 2 animated shows in the works for Game of Thrones because HBO is putting all its eggs in the George R. R. Martin basket, it seems. We do have tellings of a animated ET show, and we also got a bit more information on the animated Corlys show about Corlys's 9 voyages. So I am working on talking about the setup for a ET show where I could think that possibly might go, which is tracing the little bit, because the idea is, how are we going to make a ET show work when we have so little information? Well, the answer is, well, if you take what little bits we have of ET from the World Book and you trace it back to its origins, because that's what I do on my channel. I'm always looking at where did the idea for this come up with, and you trace it back both to Romance of the Three Kingdoms and The King in Yellow, that gives you a setup, because there are a lot of parallels that Romance of the Three Kingdoms actually shares with Game of Thrones in the main series. And I picked out all the foils, all the parallels. I'm going to line them up for you. I'm going to show everyone, like, here's how you connect it, and here's how you can get a general audience who might not be as deep in the lore as we are, but at least get them to see this and be like, okay, I understand where you're going, because this is sort of like this. Like, I can make a connection. Like, this emperor is like this king, this character's here. Oh, there's a scheming York court eunuch. Oh, that's Varys. Okay. Like, you can make, like, let's just connect these dots. You're muted. Mute it. Mute it. Everything you said was muted.
So I was just saying, I just had to get it started. This makes a lot of sense to me because, of course, with the original Game of Thrones show, when it was being adapted to TV, you could almost hear the pitch to HBO. It's like, well, think period, medieval period drama, but like with dragons and some sorcery around the margins. And it's like, okay, that's a style of show that you can comprehend. When we talked about Nymeria's Voyages, we've compared it to like Moses, the story of Moses. It's this long exodus from an old land into a new land. And so, if you were making a Nymeria show, which hopefully they will, that's one of the ones that's supposed to be in development, you might go back and, watch the 10 Commandments and get some Charlton Heston action, loosely speaking, you know what I mean? And so, yeah, if you're going to ET and some of these other places in the East, it makes a lot of sense to dig into the lore that George shaped these worlds from so that we'll feel like E.T. I've got this First Man, True History of the First Men video coming out not this week, but the week after, for sure. I'm talking about the Sarnori and how they've got the Zokora and the Cymeri and the Gyps that all became Sarnori. And they give us like a sentence about each people, or the lost city of Liber, where the spider and the serpent god, fought an endless duel. These things that have like one line. You're like, well, what the hell does that mean? Why did George even take the time to tell us that there's a lost city of Liber with a serpent god and a spider god? It's like, well, so we could figure out that Fritz Lieber is one of George's favorite authors who wrote about a story with the serpent and spider god. And there's also a Conan story with the serpent and spider god. And once you do all that, then you can be like, oh, now I get the idea for who these, the people from Liber and the Cymeri who are also Conan related. It's like, oh, we could sort of fill in the gaps and figure out what Martin was getting at by following the thing. So that's what you're doing with E.T. and with some of the Corlys stuff. So that's what you got to look forward to. And yeah, thanks for preparing, Tim. You're a dynamo. What can I say?
So the script is done. I just have a wrinkly
nose right here. I'm going to rub it off my face real quick. Hang on.
But yeah, I am done with the script. I will be moving on to the recording and editing process. It is like one of my most adventurous videos when you're trying to cover, especially like Romance of the Three Kingdoms. It's a 14th century classic, and it's from another country, so it's like one of those things of like, I want to make sure I got all my facts right because I don't want to go misrepresenting one of like the great classic works of literature.
Yeah, I did the same thing when I started talking about Sun Wukong for the Tyrion Targaryen episode like 9 years ago, the first one I did. And it was like, oh, I shouldn't just take I should actually get into Journey of the West a little bit and see what we're talking about. So
Yeah.
I did, and it was fun. Yeah, and I think that's kind of what George is trying to do, is inspire us to read a little, you know. And so let's get going with these horny polls. I really do. I thought this was a good way to both get Tim's take and also your take, because at this point I've thrown out a whole bunch of different ideas, and I've kind of tried to make the case for each separate idea, why it could make sense, because I don't have a clear sense of like, you know, oh, this theory has 80% chance, and maybe this other thing will happen, and maybe this other, like, it's all, I'm really not sure. And all the horn symbolism kind of applies to all of them. It's like, well, which one breaks the wall? Which one binds dragons and how? And which one is going to signal the apocalypse and that kind of thing. So I've got 2 general questions here, and then we're going to go into each horn with some questions. That's basically what we're doing. Oh, see, what's happening, Tim, is there's a windstorm happening outside. I've got a big bunch of trees in front of my house. And when I went out to my car 20 minutes ago, it was covered in tree jizz, tree spray everywhere. And it was just all getting kicked around. I think I just got a little something in my nose here. So hopefully it'll work itself out. But yeah, that's what happened. I got treed. Classic pollen shot. Thank you, Tommy. Yep, the pollen shot. Tree beard just got me right in the face there. So general horniness. First poll question. Which horn breaks the wall? And our choices obviously are Dragonbinder, Mance's Jorman horn, Sam's broken horn, or none of the above. So Tim, I will give it to you first. Do you think that any of the horns break the wall? And if so, which one?
Well, if any of them do, I'm going to go with Sam's broken horn. I do feel like Sam's broken horn seems like the most likely candidate to be the Horn of Winter. And it's because of how small and like plain looking it is, but also because of where it's currently situated. The fact that Euron's there, and Euron is our stand-in Night's King, so it makes sense that it's going to come into his possession. And if he ascends to the top of the High Tower with it, the High Tower being another one of these, like, if we think of like linchpins of magic, right? Hinges of the world, let's say, we get the term. Like a shy, like the wall. It seems also like the High Tower itself might be one of these hinges, especially if Leighton Hightower has been up there reading books of magic for 10 years. I'm starting to think that Leighton Hightower might actually be a linchpin at this point. Like maybe he physically can't leave the High Tower. Maybe he's possibly grounded himself to it as a magical conduit, and Euron's going to take advantage of that.
Yeah, that's why I led with Euron in my video, because it's kind of the first reason why we look at Sam's little horn and think, oh, this is something, because it's been moved to Old Town, and that just doesn't seem random, especially when he's sold all of his other possessions and he still has it. Now, what Euron's going to do with the horn is a whole different question, but yeah, if there's a Horn of Winter, quote unquote, that certainly could be it. The Indiana Jones argument is strong. You know, the Carpenter, the simple one. I do think they all potentially do something. And the case for Dragonbinder breaking the wall, by the way, is that Dragonbinder might call a comet, which we're going to poll a question on, and a comet would break the wall. And also the sound of Dragonbinder. I was just making the point that, like, if there's a sound that's going to resonate the wall and crack it, like the Dragonbinder scream is an ungodly scream. So maybe the fiery horn breaks the wall, but the Horn of Winter does something different. You know what I mean? I could see that. But, and then Mance's Jorman horn, I mean, that could be the real Horn of Winter. It's probably not, because they say it is, you know? And if it's a dragon horn, then it seems like it's maybe a different mystery. But then there's the whole waking the sleepers thing. So how do you think Sam's horn would break the wall? Do you think it's a Weirwoods under the wall thing, like Michael talks about? Or do you think it's something else, like a sound thing? Subsonic brown note.
I think it is. I think it's a White Walker dog whistle. Like, I think when it was blown, they weren't meant to blow it. It seems like it was buried without instructions, you know? Like in your video, you had mentioned like possibly like, well, what would be the setup? What would be a situation in which you would want the White Walkers to show up? One is, are you there? You're there to make a bargain with them, or two, and this is my idea was no, you're calling them there to ambush them. That's why you have the dragon glass. Like if you wanted to set up an ambush on the White Walkers, you have tons of dragon glass, tons of Valyrian steel, put a lot of guys at the ready, call the White Walkers, and then just annihilate them, I guess, before they have a chance to summon whites or anything like that. That seems to be like, that would be the ideal situation of why the Night's Watch in particular would want to summon White Walkers, as if they could just like take them all out in one gigantic sweep.
It's like waving the red flag in front of the bull and then forgetting to dodge. You know, like they called them to the white, and then they just sat there. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and it's similar to my idea that it's like a kit for trading babies to the others. You call them with the horn, but you have the dragon glass to like enforce the terms of the bargain or whatever. I did think about the ambush idea. I think I forgot to mention it, but that is a cool idea. Is there a chance that by breaking the wall, they mean the magical barrier that dragons won't cross and not the actual ice wall? Yes, absolutely. It could mean that. It's the wards that stop the others. You know, the ice wall is more like for the wildlings, or maybe even the humans, you might say, depending on which way it's meant to guard from. So how are we doing on chat? So Sam's horn is leading. You guys are sheep. You do whatever Grey Waste Tim says, and that's fine. No, I'm kidding.
That actually was going to be my second point, was exactly what that super chat said, that breaking the wall might not mean physically breaking the wall, but it might mean breaking the seal around the wall, that which prevents White Walkers from getting around it, that which prevents dragons from getting around it. And that could possibly happen with Euron blowing it at the top of something magical like the High Tower. That might be the thing that sort of undoes the lock. Again, the hinge of the screaming door, if we think of Aeron, and Euron's the one doing it, so Euron ripping that hinge off the door, as in unlocking the magical seal around the wall. It's symbolically breaking it.
And I think one or two people in the chat said, what if it's blown south of the wall? And then that would call them to cross the wall, as opposed to blowing it north of the wall. So that's one of the reasons why I like the idea that the horn calls the others, because it could do different things based on the context that it's blown in. And that does seem like the way that George writes about power, is that it could be used for good or ill, depending on who has it. Just like theoretically, Tim, AI could be used for good purposes if it was in the hands of people that were trying to do good things and not just replace every human worker that they've ever had to employ. That's that's a different story.
Yeah.
So we've got 60. So we'll call this a winner. Call for Sam's broken horn, clear edge there. And so this is the other question I got the most on both videos, the Jorman and the horn and the Sam's horn video. What does wake the horn that wakes the sleepers? It's part of the Night's Watch oath. This is a clue that some sort of horn blowing, either literal or maybe metaphorical, is important. Like you mentioned, never mind. Never mind. What does wake the sleepers mean? It could mean a lot of things. It could mean the weirwoods beneath the wall. That's the Michael talks about stuff idea. And I like the silent horn talks to the silent trees thing. That kind of makes sense. The others two are silent, except for their icy chuckle. But people say, the others make no sound when they walk, I guess. I don't know. Waking the sleepers could be the others themselves, calling the others or activating them. Waking the sleepers could be resurrecting watchmen / freeing ice whites from bondage. Maybe this is how Cold Hands was made. Cold Hands is based on Herne the Hunter, and Herne the Hunter does have a horn. And Herne the Hunter mythology is what George used to create the story of Horn Hill. The two brothers who married a woods witch, and they each lie with her every time the moon was full, and they wouldn't die. It's Harlan the Hunter and Herndon of the Horn. So we know that George is hip to Herne the Hunter, and his horn is a big part of what he's doing here. So Sam's from Horn Hill. He finds the horn by a hill. So maybe this does have to do with Cold Hands freeing whites or resurrecting watchmen. And of course, resurrecting watchmen Also leads us to our fourth idea, something in the crypts. Is waking the sleepers mean waking the statues or the spirits in the statues? That could be the same as calling the others for all we know. It's a mess. But yeah, those are your choices. So Tim, what do you think wake the sleepers means?
Even though I think it's the most outlandish, I really like the idea of it waking the statues in the crypts because George presents so many parallels to it.
Boo,
And now,
boo.
Now, first of all, like I said, I've been working on this UT thing, so I got a lot of like Chinese mythology in my mind. So that's because the statues of the Stark kings down in the crypts of Winterfell, it's a lot like the terracotta warriors, which are buried buried with the first emperor of China. And the thing about the terracotta warriors is like they're actually each one is actually individualized. It's not like they just made one statue and then made a bunch of copies. Like each statue has its own individual features, just like how all the statues down in the crypts of the Stark kings and Lyanna and they all have their individual features. And then it always seems like we get the idea that the statues are moving. Like it could be just an illusion of the eye, like maybe out of your periphery, it looks like they blinked or moved or something. But there's always this idea like the statues are ever so slightly moving. Then
Can I just ask you real quick, have those terracotta warriors ever moved or woken up? Has anybody has seen?
I'm not sure. There's probably a Chinese horror film in which that's been
I'm just
done.
being a dick.
Yeah. But then there's also so stone giants, right? So George does a lot of far east, far north, and oh my god, am I going to be going way into that in this video. But in the far east, there is the stone giants, the Jogwin. And then so here we have stone giants. And then we also could have symbolic stone men, and that is people with grayscale. It's been an idea that grayscale might make it an immunity to being whited somehow, some way. So there's all of these symbolic aspects, right, of stone men, stone giants, just peppered all throughout the story. And it seems like, Chekhov's gun says, like, this has to lead somewhere. Or it could, or maybe it doesn't. Maybe it all is just fun world building. But I do really like the idea of the stones, of those stone statues just physically getting up and moving, at least at some point.
So I hate the idea of the statues moving because that seems way too silly for Ice and Fire to me. I like the idea, but I just don't see it, I guess is what I'm saying. Like I don't see that fitting with the books that we've been reading. The statues are walking. It's going to be something that represents that. Like the spirits of these Starks are in the Weirwood net and they're what animating the others. So the White Walkers are actually the statues of the Kings of Winter from the crypts or something like that.
And that could be like the statue moves as in the gravestone just moves out of the way and the dead Stark buried beneath it comes out, right? Because it also seems
they're
like
going to be in rough shape by now, man. They're old.
But it seems like the other thing about like burying the Starks, especially with iron crowns, is it seems like it's not like it's like they anticipate that the Starks are going to rise from their grave. They got this whole wraith thing going on, and unless you put down like iron and salt and some kind of like magical circle seal, like they're not going to stay down there. We need to pour cement into all the open graves and cast them in iron to make sure they never rise again.
So I agree that George is constantly teasing us with this idea. And Eldrick Stoneskin deserves a huge shout out here. He's made videos about grayscale and the stone giants and how it all connects. He hasn't made a video in about a year, but the videos that he did make are awesome. So if you're into this idea, definitely go check him out. Eldrick Stoneskin is his YouTube channel. He's been on here a couple times. And somebody in the chat just said, do you think winds in the Winds of Winter book title could be a double meaning for winding all three horns, at least winding the horn of winter? I haven't thought of that before, but considering the fact that there is a horn on the mock-up cover of Winds of Winter, that'd make a lot of sense. It's pretty good. So we've got Weirwoods Beneath the Wall, 17%, the others at 19%, Resurrected Watchmen at 24%. You guys really want You want those statues to. I hope it happens just for
Everyone,
y'all.
everyone wants stone mechs. They know that, just like me, they all know that George is a secret weeb, and we want stone mechs.
The thing is, the men of Dunharrow were spirits, you know? And so, like, if we see spirits come out of the crypts, that'll make a lot more sense to me. But I'm a curmudgeon. Don't mind me. You vote for whatever you want there, guys. So, and I put something in the crypts intentionally because there's, I didn't want to say waking the statues. Like, there could be any number of, like I said, spirits coming out of there. There's maybe a dragon's egg down there. So something in the crypts could definitely be the answer. Sorry, I'm in a little bit of a loose mood today. I might be a little gamey here. Don't take anything I say seriously. I love y'all. I'm going to leave this poll running here because it is still moving quite a bit. What do you think of a horn that wakes this? So why would the Night's Watch need to blow a horn? Let's ask that question. Because the Night's Watch say, I am the horn that wakes the sleepers. So, like, what are we waking and why? How's that going to help the Watchmen to wake the sleepers? If it's like what you say, we're using the horn to call the walkers to ambush them.
Yeah.
Let's run with that a little further. Think about the end game. There's an idea out there from me and other people that the White Walkers were originally weirwood spirits that were ripped out of the weirwood trees, and that the big solution to the White Walker problem is not slaying them, which a lot of people think that, but rather resolving the ancient animosity, the original sin, whatever did it. So if they were ripped out of the weirwood net, we need to put them back in. And so how are we going to do that? At some point, we're going to have to call them to a place and do some magic. So maybe that's what the horn is for.
Yeah. Like, waking the sleepers could also possibly refer to waking the dreamers. And I always think of, like, those children of the forest that are in the roots of the weirwood. And, like, it seems it's that whole Lovecraftian thing of dead but dreaming. And it seems like these children of the forest, these really old ones, are sort of in this cryostasis, but they're still sort of alive. So waking the sleepers could mean waking the dreamers, which could mean, like, bringing those children out of like this suspended animation that they're in, and possibly getting their help. Because it seems like the end of the long night came with help from the children of the forest. So waking the dreamers, bringing them out of their slumber, getting them back into the waking worlds, that, to get off your ass and do something. Perhaps that's what it is.
That's interesting because, of course, those dreamers in Bloodraven's Cave are essentially parallels to the Kings of Winter. That's one of the reasons why I think the lowest level of the crypts is going to have green seers in there on thrones, because that's what we see in Bloodraven's Cave. Video forthcoming. What's under Winterfell? So yeah, we'll go ahead and call this chat here, this poll. Something in the crypts, 36. The irresistible, the allure of the... There's something down there, Tim. What is it? I don't know, but it's going to come out.
Yeah.
So that's our winner.
Dragon's egg, maybe maybe we'll see something like that in season 3 of House of the Dragon. Maybe we've talked about Rhaegar's harp possibly being down there. Maybe that's buried with Lyanna. I always wonder if someone has to, is someone going to have to go grave robbing down there to find out to find exactly what it is?
Rooting around in Lyanna's bones, looking for the... No, it's going to be funny if Ned didn't bring back the bones of all the other Northmen. Barbary Dustin famously pissed off. Ned brings back the horse, but not as the bones of his friends. But he did haul Rhaegar's giant harp back to Winterfell. Like, nobody look at this. We'll see. That's why I like the Dragon's Egg idea, because the Dragon's Egg would have been left there by Jace and Vermax when they made the Pact of Ice and Fire. So it's not Ned, like, smuggling a harp down into the crypts. Everyone's asking questions. All right. So Dragonbinder, we're going to focus more on the other two horns, but I did have a couple of Dragonbinder questions that I just figured I would throw out at y'all since we're just taking the temperature here. Did Dragonbinder cause magical compulsion at the Kingsmoot? Euron sounded it, and then, the Ironborn, who were previously, they were with Victarion and Asha, and all of a sudden they're just like, Euron, this is great, we love this guy. Even though he doesn't really propose a plan. He's just like, I've got a horn, and we're gonna get dragons, and everyone's like, yeah. It's like, since when has that been the dream of the Ironborn, right? And so, people are wondering, maybe there's a low level secondary side effect that's swaying people's minds and stuff like that. And so that is a question that's been running, and it looks like pretty even split here. So get your votes in, folks. This is going to be a close one.
So I would say yes. And if we look at, if we look at dragons, right, and trace back their origins, so dragons like in Beowulf, and then dragons like Smaug, right, from The Hobbit, they sit on a mountain of gold and treasure, right? They're hoarders. And after the horn is blown, that's also when Euron throws down all of the riches, the bolts of silk, all of the gold, all of the gemstones. And you see all of the Ironborn just greedily like going for it. So, and I mean, yeah, Ironborn, like greedy Ironborn, like that's neither here nor there. But there is the idea that like maybe the dragon binder, like horn, like just brought up like all of those, those more baser instincts to the surface. And that's why you see like such like people who seconds ago were supporting the drum or were supporting Victarion are now instantly changing their vote. Like it does seem there is some kind of compulsion to get on Euron's side, and it could be like stoking up people's baser urges. Like Euron is a populist, I guess you could say, in that regard.
It could also be not necessarily compulsion magic, but just George showing us that like magic really impresses people. The horn's sound is obviously unnatural, and so people could feel the power of it. Similar when Stannis and Melisandre do the glamored Lightbringer show at the Wall. Jon knows it's fake, and he's still impressed by it. He's like, this is the sun-made steel. This is incredible. It made the fire shrink and seem like a pathetic little thing or whatever. The small dog and the bigger dog, I think, is the metaphor that's used. So, yeah, it kind of does seem like it influenced people. The question is, was it a spell or was it just people being impressed? Definitely this is an idea that people are entertaining. It was about 55-45, and then by the time Tim was done talking, it's 69-31. Because you guys eat out of Grey Waste Tim's palm, like Tim's cat does. Which, again, is fine. It's a fine choice. Many palms you can eat out of. Grey Waste Tim's is good. You probably wash your hands a lot, don't you, Tim?
Yeah, I'm just seeing Damon's purring. I'm wondering if the mic's picking it up.
Oh, I don't know. I'm yakking too much, but probably not. There's a little bit of like filtering in the YouTube where they drop out the quieter sounds. So no, Tim does make great points. Of course he does. He's a dynamo. So next question for Dragonbinder: does it call comets? I'm hoping y'all come through. No, don't vote in this poll to please me. Don't do that. Just give me your opinion. Does it call comets? There's two things that are suggested as things that could drag a comet from the Oort cloud or something like that. One is the Weirwood magic. The other is the horn. Hammerhorn Keep. Famously, this is probably my favorite little symbolic version of this idea. Hammerhorn Keep on the Iron Islands, which is a home of House Goodbrother, right?
Yeah, the Hammerhorn
belongs to Goodbrother. Goodbrother's sigil is a black war horn banded in gold, so it looks basically like either Mance's horn or even like Sam's banded in bronze, but it's close enough. And so Hammerhorn Keep, the hammer of the waters. I think it was a moon meteor. And so if there's a horn that calls a comet, causes this apocalypse, then that's a hammer horn. And at the Hammerhorn Keep, the iron of the battlements, the spiky iron battlements, is clawing at the face of the moon. So we got Hammerhorn Keep in control of Goodbrother, whose sigil is a horn, and their castle is attacking the moon. Just saying. And so, yeah, Dragonbinder, Cometbinder. It's got to be called somehow. Yeah, I hate you guys. No, 57%. Yes, 43%. What do you think, Tim?
I actually do think yes, because comets are a stand-in for dragons. And again, Euron's whole deal. The bleeding star bespoke the end. Now is the time when a new god will be made in the graves and the charnel pits. It seems like for Euron, the culmination, Euron's apotheosis, requires the red comet to return. And I stand by the idea that I've thrown out there a couple of times. I think there's going to be a sort of magical culmination where all of these things are going to be happening simultaneously at different ends of the world, at different ends of the planet. Like Euron going to the top of the high tower, meanwhile Victarion roughly at the same time blowing Dragonbinder, and it's going to be all up to us on the reader of being like, whoa, okay, what caused this? Something's going to happen. The red comet's going to return, and we're all going to be like, okay, what called it? Was it one thing? Was it everything? Like, who did this? But somehow, some way, that red comet is coming back. Like George even says, like, when the red comet returns, it's another Chekhov's gun. It's got to be fired.
And I will just say, I am not at all convinced that Dragonbinder... I'm totally kidding. I love you guys, obviously. I am not at all convinced that Dragonbinder is going to call the comet, because I really do think it's going to facilitate Victarion getting stuffed in Viserion. The detail foreshadowing for that is just very compelling, in my opinion. And it might be a bit of a stretch to think that the same horn can facilitate the Dragon Bond and also call comets. Like, that's a bit of a MacGuffin at that point. So, like, yeah, it's just an idea that kind of makes sense, and it could be something that we won't find out exactly. Like Tim said, the horn will blow. We're not sure what does what. But I think it's a good enough idea to take a poll on. You guys, 50-50. I should probably end the poll before I'm... Oh, it's too late. I fell behind again. No, it's fine, y'all. It's fine.
But we closed the gap, at least. Just a little bit. We did. Well, if you close it now, you win.
And it could be a thing where you use the horn in a different way and it does different things, perhaps. I've also suggested maybe the Valyrians could make horns to do different things based on what the runes say on the bands. 6 months ago, I would have had no idea what you were talking about, but I have been comet-pilled for sure. That's what we like to hear. Thank you.
Yeah.
For sure.
And it's because we definitely know Makoro is withholding information from Victarion, right? When he's giving the translations, I don't think he's translating all of the glyphs. He's translating select pieces. Things that, like, okay, this is okay for you to know. Which brings us to that next question. Will Victarion blow it? I think yes. Because it's calling out to him. I've compared it to, like, I use the example of Jason Goes to Hell when different people are putting on Jason's hockey mask. It's just calling out to him. It's like, right? It just seems like he's gonna blow it. He's so tempted to. He sexualizes it to the point. It's like
he's horny for the horn, Tim.
He's gonna put it in his mouth.
He is. He sure is. I'm trying to mark this. I'm gonna mark it both. Oh, that's the wrong color. Where's bright red? There. No. Bright red, bastard. Should be that one. Okay. Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, so will Victarion blow the horn? I absolutely think he's definitely going to. I mean, not only the way he's lusting after it, but the way that George compares it to the One Ring. Because it's got gold rings around it, but then the whole vibe of it where it's like, you shouldn't, but you really want to. So, yeah, I do think he's going to blow it, and I think it's going to stuff him into Viserion, and that's how that's how Euron's going to claim a dragon, basically creating a new dragon bond with the Greyjoy bloodline, more or less. But I don't know if it's going to work perfectly because they don't have the lizard DNA that the Targaryens have. So, so 93%. People definitely think Vic's going to blow it. So it's really just a matter of what'll happen to him when he does. But, I like that one. And, of course, if you want my theory on that, it's called... I think the text title is How Euron Will Trick Victarion, and the cover just says Victarion Viserion, and it's got the two of them on there. So we'll go ahead. We'll wrap that one up. That's a clear expression of opinion. Will Daenerys blow it? I think this is maybe the more interesting question. I came up with this theory based on matching the torques and armbands of the various horn blowers to the horn, right? Tormund's got the armbands and the torque that matches his horn. The Dragonbinder at the King's Moot he's got gold and Jade and Jet bands around his arm, so only the gold matches. However, the horn does have gold bands on it. And then Dany is the best one because she has a Valyrian steel torque with glyphs on it. And the horn has Valyrian steel bands with glyphs on it. So I have suggested that Dany might blow the horn. She might, Victarion is bringing her the damn thing. And so, yeah, I don't know when she'll blow it. It could, be back in Westeros, or it could be out in Slaver's Bay. But the torques really match the horn. So that makes me think that it could happen. How would you see that going down?
Well, first of all, if the horn is blown and it steals a dragon, like we've been talking about, like it's probably Viserion, right? And if Viserion flies away and Dany realizes, well, I'm now down one dragon, I could see her blowing it in a fit of desperation, try and get Viserion back before he gets too far away. But then there's also the problem of Drogon. Drogon listens when he wants to. Dany doesn't have enough badges to train him, essentially. So, but we said in Valyrian, from what we were told, like the Valyrian dragon bond, sometimes it still did require the whip and the horn to bind them. Like, because dragons are not a slave. They still have a will of their own. So possibly Dany will blow the dragon binder as a means of getting Drogon to be not submissive, but at least to listen, to be a good steed.
She could at least try it. Whether or not it works is something that she could conceivably try. And if it's something that calls the comet, then it really makes sense for her to blow it because she is a Nissa Nissa figure. And Nissa Nissa's scream that breaks the moon is directly suggested by the sound of the horn at the Kingsmoot when it is blown. It's a scream and a wail and a cry and all this stuff. It's like a sword thrust that splits the air, fills the whole world. So it really does sound like Nissa Nissa's scream that was like a sword thrust that split the moon. So yeah, if there's going to be somebody that blows it to call the comet, I would guess that's going to be Dany. She probably won't think that that's what's going to happen. But there's a decent chance that she could fall under the influence of Euron for a time. I'm not sure that's going to happen, but it definitely could happen. Dario could be seen as foreshadowing for Euron in a lot of ways, both symbolically and vibes-wise. And that's the whole point of what Victarion's trying to do. So, no, Chad hates my ideas. That's cool. It's cool. That's fine. 62-38. And we'll go ahead and end this poll because I do want to get on the other horns. And then Makoro's agenda, we just started to touch on that. But yeah, who is he working for R'hllor? Is he working for Euron? Or does he have his own agenda more like Melisandre? What would you say?
I think he, along with Benero, are championing Dany. Melisandre, as said, has been kind of a heretic. I still really don't understand why she's championed Stannis. It seems like it's more to push her in the direction of Jon, if anything. But Benero and Makoro seem to have put like, no, we're putting our bets on the Dany race, right? And it seems like that's what he's doing. And it seems like he is just trying to, right now, in his situation with Victarion, at the moment, it seems to be like ensuring that this horn makes it to Dany and keeping Victarion from doing something stupid with it.
Yeah, that I could sort of see that. I have a hard time seeing him being in league with Euron. I just don't know how Euron would be coordinating with him. Euron's not really someone who coordinates with other magic users. He chains them up in the Hold of Silence and cuts their legs off and feeds them to the ocean and stuff like that. So,
well, also the way he describes Euron, because he tells Victarion of his vision of like a giant black tentacled creature with one red eye and a sea of blood, and this is coming after Makoro insults the drowned god. Like, no, if Makoro would view Euron as a heathen, just like R'hllor's view anyone who isn't R'hllor's as heathens. Especially Euron, the one who wants to become a god himself. Like, that is the ultimate apostasy, right?
Oh, I forgot the best argument for Dany blowing it. It says, no mortal man may sound me and live. And it just seems a lot like George is riffing on no man can kill the Nazgul.
Yeah, the Witch King of Ang.
And then
Like,
it's
no
Eowyn
man.
who does it. Yeah,
Yeah.
Eowyn. So yeah, maybe that's a thing. Dany could also be whited by the time she gets it. I don't think that's going to happen, but just the fact that Jon Snow is going to get whited means that, I wouldn't be surprised if Dany becomes a fire white and then they're a match for each other. I kind of don't want that to happen, but can't rule it out. There are red priests around, and she's doing dangerous stuff, so maybe Jon and Dany will be whited happily ever, ever after.
And well, I mean, Euron is drinking Shade of the Evening. He's drinking the wine of warlocks. And we talk about, especially when we talk about like Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn, the Witchwood. And I've always said, like, well, the Shade of the Evening then is like warlock wood. So that makes Euron a warlock king. So he would be an analog to the Witch King.
Yeah. Right. And the whole dead dragon Bayaki thing sort of fits with their mounts as well. Too. Yeah, I like that. So let's talk about the wildling horn, Manson Tormund's horn that Melisandre burns. First question. Actually, we'll do the second question first. Was it actually destroyed? Yes or no? Melisandre, they tossed it into the fire pit and it blazed up, and then all the focus goes to Mance. And then the scene ends, and we don't see it destroyed. We don't see it pulled out. We never hear about it again. So it may be gone. It may be gone. But the fact that it looks like a dragon horn to me is what suggests that
it's fireproof.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
Slightly singed at most.
And also just too important to burn and get rid of it. It's kind of like, what was the point of showing us a dragon horn and then burning it and it never does anything? That's questionable to me. Maybe that would just to tell us the dragons were in the north. That doesn't seem like quite enough. So, was it actually destroyed? Is the question. So you don't think so?
I don't think so. And I do think that it was a dragon's horn now. So shout out to Estella Graves again. So in her video, she makes mention of a gray area theory and regarding Melisandre possibly being from Hardhome. And then that is built on another theory by Nim Shadow. So Nim Shadow is another one of the co-hosts of Direwolf City. So gray area, all four of the hosts of Direwolf City are great in their own right. Well, Nim Shadow had this theory that possibly what happened at Hardhome may have been a Valyrian dragon raid because Hardhome also sets up well with the founding of Braavos. Now, in the Mercy chapter, Raph the Sweetwing is complaining, where he says, like, well, we're in the free cities. Where's the lemons? Where's all the girls in belly shirts? And the guy and one of the guys he's with says, like, in south, in Volantis, like, didn't you look at the map? Braavos is in the north. So Braavos, if you look at its latitude and longitude, it's in line with the north. And so here you have Braavos, this city founded by escaped slaves, and then Hardhome coming out, the only city in it beyond the wall, a proclamation of a city founded by these people calling themselves the Free Folk. Possibly this is misidentification, that Valyrians looking for these escaped slaves overshoot it, go past Braavos, and end up in Hardhome thinking that these Free Folk are these escaped slaves who have founded the city in the north. And I've always kind of liked that theory that Hardhome, because not only does it explain why Hardhome burned, but it would also put why would there be a dragon horn in the north if it came from a Valyrian dragon that attacked beyond the wall.
That's a pretty interesting idea. I don't hate that at all. And yeah, shout out Direwolf City. I do feel like there's something missing about Hardhome. Like, it's important for some reason. I did a Hardhome video, and we could have done a whole series of poll questions on Hardhome because it's another one of those things where there's a bunch of interesting possibilities. But yeah, that is a cool idea that they were looking for the people who made it to Braavos and they ended up in Hardhome instead. I mean, it is a good bit further north, but it's not crazy. It's definitely a plausible idea, and I do feel like, again, we haven't heard the last of Hardhome, so that's a pretty cool idea. And so now we're on to the question of, was it made from a dragon's horn? Oh, you guys, you're trying to make me feel better. I appreciate that. But really, there's nothing else it could be. Some people suggested maybe a mammoth tusk. could be that big. And you can hollow out a mammoth tusk. But it just, I would feel
It's a
like they
lot
would
to
know that
hollow
that's
out.
what it is, you know?
A mammoth tusk it's also a lot to haul it out. It's very big and it's very solid.
Yeah, it'd take some work for sure. Also, I don't know that those are thick enough for John to be able to put his arm into it up to the elbow.
Mm,
So it's got to be at least that wide, you know?
yeah,
Um,
but whatever it is, it didn't come from no aurochs.
it's not an aurochs horn. So yeah, that's like the one other idea that made a little bit of sense is the mammoth tusk. And it fits with it being a giant, giant's grave. They ride the mammoths and stuff, but it really looks like a dragon horn. And the fact that it's described in such similar terms to the dragon binder, and also the scene of Mance's burning has a lot of parallels to the King's Moot, with the symbolism of it and the screaming and some other things. So, yeah, this looks like I have convinced you at least that it is a dragon's horn. So that's cool. I appreciate that. We can go ahead and end that one. That's a one-sided poll. And it's obvious. It's got to be a dragon horn. And so, who's Jorman? This is kind of a fun question. Was he a wildling king, as he's supposed to be? Was he a giant? Because we found this horn of Jorman in a giant's grave, supposedly. And maybe those two ideas are the same thing. Maybe the first king beyond the wall was a half giant. The Umbers do seem to have giant's blood. So, like, the first generation human giant hybrids might have slayed. They can be more civilized like a human, but they're friggin' huge. So, I don't know. Wildling king, giant. Was Jorman the dragon? Because obviously Jormungandr is a worm, and this is a dragon horn. So maybe Jorman is the dragon. Or was it a Dane warrior? And I suggested that because you have Jorman and Brandon the Breaker teaming up to defeat Night's King. And so Last Hero has always had this twin Stark and Dane symbolism. So maybe he's just a child of a Stark and a Dane, so it's all him. But maybe there's two heroes here. Maybe there's a Stark and a Dane working here. And since Brandon the Breaker is the Stark, maybe Jorman's the Dane. There was one other clue about that, too. Just the idea that, like... No. Oh, Mance Rayder. That's right. He's got the silk from Ashai, the red Ashai silk in his cloak. And so this is a symbol that the King Beyond the Wall has an Ashai cloak. So maybe the first King Beyond the Wall was a Dane from Ashai. I think that's what I did with that, yeah.
Yeah.
So what do you think? Who's Jorman, Tim?
So my idea is that he is a wildling king, but there's more to it. And again, going back to doing this YT video and having all these far east, far north parallels, the reason I think he's a wildling king and it's so important that it be a wildling king banding together with a Stark of Winterfell, because these would two normally be enemies, right, coming together to fight a greater evil. It's because of Elric Shadow Chaser. So, out in the Far East, when we have our Long Night thing, we have Azor Ahai, but we also get these other names, right? Yintar, Nefarian, Hirkun the Hero, and they all sound like these regional versions of the same person, or maybe they are, or I've put forward the idea, maybe these are like the 12 companions. These are the name, like these are Azor Ahai and his apostles. But then Elric Shadow Chaser, like he doesn't fit the naming scheme, right? There's nothing to connect him to unless he is a figure from beyond the wall. In the Far East, that would be the Five Forts. Because right now, the Five Forts serve as guarding Yi Ti against raiders out of the Grey Waste, which essentially are Eastern wildlings.
Like you.
So,
Raiders of the Grey Waste like you.
Mm-hmm. So, Easterlings. And so what I envision is that my idea for Elric Shadow Chaser is that Elric Shadow Chaser may have actually been from the Grey Waste. He may have been like a sort of Easterling king. And so what would normally be an enemy to that Golden Empire of ET, but here to fight this greater evil of whether that be Night's King in the far north or Bloodstone Emperor in the far east, you having a coming together of former enemies now turned allies. And this is with two Kings Beyond the Wall figure. Jorman is the King Beyond the Wall. Elric Shadow Chaser is the King Beyond the Forts. That's how I
interesting,
envision.
Tim. That kind of fits with the Northern Passage idea You know, like maybe some people came from the northern part of beyond the Five Forts, like Mossavi or the Grey Waste. Again, maybe that connects up north. You know, the Maesters speculate about a northern passage in the World of Ice and Fire. So it is an idea that George has dropped into the milieu. I like that. And also people are pointing out that Mira could be a Dane, Jojen and Mira, if Shara and Howland. You're not allowed to talk about Hal's Moving Castle, Tim.
I was just going to say, there was a point where we were going to talk about Hal's Moving Castle, but I had so much to say on it, we decided it would just be way too long to do both the horns, Corlys show, and Hal's Moving Castle. So Hal and Reed's Moving Castle is being moved to another Westeros talk somewhere down the line.
Real quick, Maynard Plum, can I get the Who is Jorman poll? We didn't get that poll. And so this is potentially Bran Stark working with a couple of Danes north of the Wall. Interesting potential echo of Brandon the Breaker and Jorman. So that would be cool. The northern. So there was actually a question from the Discord about this. Have you ever explored the idea that Bloodstone Emperor and Azor Ahai might have been brothers, with one being a bastard, given all the brother versus brother symbolism found in the mythology? And essentially, one of the implications of that is the fact that of the 5 other names for Azor Ahai from the east that were given, one is Eldrick Shadowchaser, and the other is Yurkun the Hero, or Herkun the Hero, and that's obviously based on Elric of Melnibone and his cousin Irkun, who both had black magic dragon swords, Stormbringer and Mournblade, Lightbringer and Dawn the Sword of the Morning. It's a big influence on George, obviously. And they were cousins who fought. And so in Ice and Fire, we have brothers that fight, cousins that fight, uncle and nephew, even father and son. Bael the Bard, slain by his son. Bael the Bard is a king beyond the wall, slain by his son, who is half Stark. So, yes, there is surely some sort of tangled web, a family affair here going on. It's hard to say who's related to who or whatever, but yeah, so Hal's Moving Castle, I have not seen it. I'm familiar with the story, partially because of Grey Waste Tim. We've talked about it before.
Yeah.
We're going to do a whole segment on it soon.
I will say, when we do Hal's Moving Castle, we will be talking about the book. The book is the thing that is important to A Song of Ice and Fire, not the Studio Ghibli movie. Like with a lot of adaptations, Studio Ghibli took a lot of what's the word? They changed some things. They took some liberties with the story and changed some things around. No, it's the book version of Hal's Moving Castle, especially the book version of The Witch of the Waste in that story, that's going to be important to the themes of A Song of Ice and Fire.
Yeah, there's a lot there. There was more than just the Hal Ashara stuff. I was pretty impressed. So yeah, we'll definitely come back for that. Also wanted to shout out Norwegian Independence Day just ended by the clock a couple hours ago. So freedom. And there we are. I'm not sure what happened to the poll here. This potential Maynard James Plum might have lost his internet connection, I'm wondering, because his cursor kind of froze here.
To answer that question, I've actually, to be honest, I've never thought about Bloodstone and Azor Ahai being brothers. I've always kind of thought they were going to end up being the same person. I always figured Azor Ahai was going to turn out to be the villain, right, of the story, that the Ashai legend is actually a corruption, and this is a story of a dark Jesus figure. But I have thought about Night's King and Brandon the Breaker being related. So when old Nan tells the story is telling the Night's King story to Bran, and she suggests maybe he was a Bolton, maybe he was a Stark, maybe he was named Bran, and it's because it's to scare Bran, but also it's to cover all of these Bran archetypes that we've been given: the Breaker, the Builder, the Burner, the Daughterless, yada yada yada. But then there's also Ygritte. When Jon Snow tells her his name, she says, that's an evil name. And I've always wondered, why is Jon Snow an evil name? And then the idea comes, well, what if Night's King is a Stark bastard, right? Stark bastards become members of the Night's Watch. This is literally Jon's story. if the Night's King is actually a Stark bastard named Jon Snow, and it is then his trueborn half brother Brandon the Breaker, who then must make an alliance with Jormund, the kings beyond the wall, to bring Night's King Jon Snow down. That to me seems like the great story in all this. And because it brings back to the idea of current Bran, having to wrestle our Jon Snow back to the world of the living.
Yeah, and even in Jon's Azor Ahai dream, he dreams about killing Robb, his brother, and the king of Winterfell, essentially.
Yeah.
Um,
So the heart in
yeah,
conflict with itself. If Brandon the Breaker, if the Night's King he had to kill, if the guy and to the point where he had to make common cause with a family enemy like Jormund, that again, that's the heart in conflict with itself. Like, I have to put you down, my own brother, because you're too far gone.
what do you think is the point of? Okay, I got two thoughts in my head. So to follow up on what you just said, also obviously the Bloodstone Emperor killed his sister, so that's a sibling murder, and it may be that Azor Ahai and Nissa Nissa are Bloodstone Emperor and Amethyst Empress, and so Nissa Nissa may have been Azor Ahai's sister wife for all we know.
Yeah.
Obviously, if they're dragon people, this could be a thing. So there's just a lot of that stuff, and I have no doubt that Night's King and the Last Hero must be connected somehow.
Yeah. And because we said, like, you brought up the idea that maybe Azor isn't actually a name, that Azor might be a title. And I said, like, yeah, because it sounds like Czar and Caesar, which are different ways of saying emperor. And in ET, and then in the Great Empire of the Dawn before it, these were god emperors. So maybe Azor Ahai literally means Emperor Ahai. And then that would make his wife Nissa Nissa a queen figure. So Bloodstone Emperor, Amethyst Empress, Night's King, Night's Queen. We get back to how are not we've talked about, like, how are all three of these guys the same person? Well, if Nissa Nissa is a queen figure, then that means Night's Queen, Amethyst Empress, Nissa Nissa can also all be the same figure.
Yeah, and yeah, what I have said is that we have taken this as far as we can by looking at the myths and the various parallels. Because there are parallels with so many variations, we're probably going to learn the most about what happened in the ancient past by watching how the story ends. Bran's probably not going to see all this on TV, and that we're not going to get a hard answer about the past, but we'll probably assume that it echoes or parallels whatever happens at the end. So, someone in the chat said, talking about the others at Hardhome. We don't know that the others are at Hardhome. We know whites are attacking the people there, so probably they are. But I just wanted to say we don't know that for sure. On the show, obviously they did.
Yeah. Oh, and then as well, Jazzle Dude point Azor like the gem. Well, again, Yt, the current god emperor of Yt is the Azor Emperor. So that's just George laying even more seeds to make these connections.
That's interesting. And Ahai is like Ahi Tuna, King Tuna. Azor Ahai, the Squisher King, confirmed. Yeah, Azor is blue. That might be a clue that Azor Ahai became Night's King. You know, he became Azor Ahai, if you will. Let's see how the chat is doing. So Wildling King 62, Giant 15, Dragon 14, Dane 9. Again, these ideas aren't mutually exclusive. Some of them could work together. But that's cool. Thanks, guys. And so next question. Who will blow? Again, this is the Mance's Jormung horn. If it's not destroyed, and it is a dragon horn, and it's at the wall still, is somebody going to blow it? And I've suggested Jon, because Tormund had the matching bands and torques, but he gave them to Jon. So Jon technically owns them, even though he's not like wearing them or anything. So it could be Jon. Tormund could blow it. Obviously, he's still at the wall. He's called the horn blower. If it's not going to be Jon that blows it, it would be Tormund. And then I just put someone else or no one in case anybody else has a good idea. So if you have a third idea, put it in the chat. You need to think of the color wheel theory. I don't know what that means, Tiresias. You talking about red, green, and blue? I'm not sure what that means. If John blows the horn, Danny will blow a horn because they're twin flames or something, something. Yeah, and so this is, again, Tim's idea that multiple horns may be blown at the same time. That's the way it would work the best. John blowing one, Danny blowing one, a Song of Ice and Fire, you know. And Tyrese says, I'll try to keep an eye out if you want to follow up and elaborate on how the RGB relates to brothers or how that works. Sounds like my bachelor party. Real quick, while we're taking the poll on this one, I will just say that in my last video, I mentioned, hey, you know, make sure YouTube hasn't unsubscribed to you. Like this comment, the guy in this comment who said it, and then guess what? My subscriptions on that video are like 5 times higher than normal, which confirms to me that this happened to more than one person. So I will say again, even if you think you're subscribed to the channel, just take a second, click on that subscribe button and make sure you're subbed. Make sure you are got the notifications set to all if you like YouTube notifications. And what the heck, click the thumbs up too, because we got 455 people watching the stream and we got 188 likes. So let's get that up and help YouTube know that they should show this video to other people. Let's see. I was unsubbed. Yeah, it happens. I don't know why. I really don't know why YouTube would do that, but apparently maybe there's a limit, and when you subscribe to too many new channels, it kicks you from the old ones. I don't know, again, why it would do that. But who will blow it? John 40, Tormund 29, someone else 28. So who's the someone else? Who do people think could blow the horn besides one of those? Someone said Satin in the comments, but I think that's just they want to ship Satin and sexy John Horn stuff. Let's see. Maybe Val will blow it to stay with the no man theme. Okay. That's interesting.
Morna White Mask, the Northern Quaith.
She's got a weirwood mask, so that would be almost like a weirwood tree blowing the horn, which would be cool.
But again, it's another one of these examples of George putting something in the far east and the far north. We got a red mask wearer from Ashai, and then we got a white weirwood mask wearer in the north. So both of our weirwood colors on 2 opposite ends of the earth.
Okay, these are some great suggestions here. I do think that's a Nissa Knights Queen duality, because all the Knights Queen people have weirwood symbolism, like Val, Lyanna, you know, Morna White Mask. That makes sense to me. And also, the Knights Queen is more associated with morning, while Nissa is associated with night, because Nissa actually means night in one language. There's a bunch of translations for it that I've looked up, so I forget what that is. But
someone's throwing out Patchface. Well, Patchface in one of his little jingles, he does talk about like under the sea blowing seashell horns.
That's true. He does. He talks about leading a ranging under the sea and out again, which could be awake the sleepers kind of thing. You know, he's thinking literally into the sea, but if we're talking about in and out of the green sea, that's more like a resurrection thing. People are also saying, you know, okay, so Val, Sam, Ed, Melisandre, and other. I'm interested in an other blowing the Sam's horn maybe, but the colors are the brothers. So Garth the Green is green. Who are the other brothers? Tiresias.
So, I mean, going back to when you made the House of Good Brother connection. So House Good Brother, they do so, right? Like their fortune, their wealth comes from mining and agriculture, all the things that Ironborn think they're too good to do. The Horde is also a Horde of plenty, and unlike the Grey King, the Good Brothers trace themselves back to the Grey King's Leal elder brother, which we've talked about possibly a Green King. So we got this Green King, Grey King imagery, and that Green King might actually be Garth the Green. So Garth the Green sowing his wild oats may have actually made its way to the Iron Islands as well.
Yeah, that's definitely a good topic to explore. And shout out to Crowfood's daughter of the Disputed Lands YouTube channel, who's done a lot of good work on the Grey King and Garth the Green. So definitely check out her videos. Influenced me quite a bit for sure.
Yeah, and even her namesake, Crow's Food, and Moors and Horsebane Umber, they are representing the Green King, Gray King dichotomy because Horsebane has the old graybeards, and Crow's Food is leading the Green Boys, and they're brothers.
And Crow's Food is tooting on horn for all he's worth. He's got all the green boys blowing the horns outside of Winterfell, very like Jericho. Melisandre's interesting because if this is a dragon horn, first of all, she can blow it and not die. Second of all, it'd be like super ironic if she's like, it's the horn of hell, we're burning it. And then later she's like, well, actually, we need it and I'm going to blow it. That would be interesting. That would be interesting.
So, yeah, because Mel, this was something I was going to talk about with the Witch of the Waste thing, but still, she being filled with the fires of R'hllor, and she thinks like soon she won't have to eat or drink at all or sleep or anything. If she is being fire whited, then she potentially could blow a dragonbinder horn and not have the lung crisping that happened to Euron's guy. So yeah, Melisandre possibly blowing the horn and that bringing back the red comet, and then that's what lifts the snows to allow Stannis. But I also think there's also the burning of Shireen that might also be the thing that lifts the snows.
Oh, you know what? I didn't put it in here, but what if the horn that calls the comet is this one? Because not only is it a dragon binder like Comet Binder, it's got the First Men runes on it. That's the difference between it and Dragon Binder. First Man runes. So like maybe this is something that was created in Westeros. Because like the Hammer of the Waters is called down from the Isle of Faces. I even think Azor Ahai might have murdered Nissa Nissa in Westeros and not in Ashai. And that the legend made its way back to Ashai because Azor Ahai came from there.
Yeah. Because what is a comet, right? It's frozen fire. So the Valyrians having to do with the dragons, but then the runes of the First Men being our ice, something that's important to the others. And the idea of why is the Pact of Ice and Fire, why is a Stark Targaryen baby like Jon so important to the others? Because it's a culmination of all of these magical bloodlines. It's the the linchpin. You are the linchpin.
That's exactly what I was getting at, more or less. Is it's an ice and fire symbol, dragon symbolism, First Men symbolism. Maybe that's the one that's the most powerful, and will actually call the comet. Yeah, so that's a cool idea too.
That's why I loved Austin Flowers' theory of that Craster's crow father may have actually been Maester Aemon, because Craster having dragon blood, it makes sense why the others are so willing to accept his sons.
I strongly believe that he's either Aemon's or Bloodraven's bastard, and that Craster does have dragon blood. He should. All the Night's King figures are implied to have it. Aemon's One Eye being a great example of a frozen dragon, Azor Ahai Night's King figure. So, yeah, I love that one. So now we're on to Sam's horn, the little one, smaller one. It's broken, maybe. Or is it? That's our first poll question. Is it broken? Or is it just silent? Does it work but make no sound?
Mm-hmm.
So that's your choice. Broken or silent? What do you think, Tim? Obviously you think it's just silent, don't you?
Yeah, this was in my Tim takes that I called it for this section in my own notes. And I referred to it as the silent scream. And this is more Euron connection because Euron's ship is the silence, right? But as we know, there are many screams happening on the silence. The deck is painted red to cover the bloodstains. Deep in the bowels of the silence, there is a warlock screaming, "Pray! Pray!" And so that's why I think that the White Walker dog whistle, it is a silent scream. So it's more Euron imagery. And then also because Silent Scream is it's just so good of a name for a horror film. And it is. Silent Scream is a 1979 horror slasher film B movie scream queen schlock horror coming off of the heels of The Hills Have Eyes and Last House on the Left. This is straight up George's alley. And then there's also the night back going back to George's original proposal for Song of Ice and Fire. The White Walkers, before they were the White Walkers, before they were the others, they were known as the Neverborn. And so this relates to Craster giving up his sons. Silent Scream, along with being a horror film, it's also the name of a pro-life propaganda piece that was championed by the Reagan administration. So if we're talking like the 80s, George's formative years, he's an old hippie. You have the old hippies, you have the Reagan Democrats, but then you also have the hippies who stayed with the ideals of peace and love, and that seems to be George. So Silent Scream, this propaganda piece, brought up by the Reagan administration, championed by the Reverend Jerry Falwell, like that is something that in George's mind, like would be in George's mind because of of the way it was being held up as a propaganda piece. So, just
and your point about that is that it's as an anti-abortion, political statement. Maybe it's the Silent Scream has something to do with Craster's babies.
Yeah, the Silent Scream. Yeah,
that's pretty dark. But everything with Craster is dark. So, I definitely think George is meaning to do something with, on one hand, the horn that is so ungodly loud no one can even think straight, and the other one that's silent.
Yeah.
And it is said to be broken. It's said to have a chip in the rim, and then John later says it was broken. I don't know if it's said to be cracked or not. I can't recall. But yeah, the point is, it doesn't make any sound, and so it's either broken and can be fixed, perhaps, or it is silent. The chat thinks that it is merely silent. I think that is correct. Yeah, Ghost is silent. The Weirwoods are silent. Dragons are loud. Comets are loud. Yeah. Not in space. You can't hear anything in space. But once they get in the atmosphere, they're very loud. So
yeah, I think it's just naturally silent to serve as a foil to the loud, clamorous Dragonbinder, and then putting it in the hands of the captain of the silence. That's just chef's kiss, right? That just goes hand in hand.
Very nice.
Very nice.
And so, okay, that makes sense. Yeah. So did Sam's horn call the others to the fist / does it call the others? This is the same question. Like, if it calls the others, then it did call them to the fist. There's a couple different ways that could play out. Is like we were saying, is it to set an ambush for the others, to lead them back into the Weirwood net, to trade babies? We're going to get into that. But just simple question. Does the horn call the others? Did it call the others to the fist when John blew it? And I will remind you that there are several days in between John blowing it and the others showing up. But I think that could make sense because they showed up with so many whites, it may have taken them time to gather them together, and it's quite possible that they wouldn't want to attack the Night's Watch without a bunch of whites, because guess what? The others are actually super duper fragile. They're one-hit kills if you have Dragon Glass. So they would, if I was a White Walker and I was that fragile, I would want to send the army of the dead at my enemies, and I would stand at the back and chuckle, coldly.
Because that would be something, right? If this was done before, and if there's a White Walker among them who's like, remember what happened the last time they blew that horn? It was a setup, and so they come prepared for this time. That would be interesting.
Someone said, the horn calls the others in 3 to 5 business days. Exactly.
Yeah. So the idea of calling the others just to ambush them, that makes me think of like, okay, so Daeron, the young dragon, in his war against Dorne, he's killed under a peace banner. The Dornish wave the white flag and then kill him anyway. So it's false peace terms that led to his downfall. And it's like, what if that's what happened? Maybe the same thing happened to the others in the past. That could be another reason why they're so irked. Why they're so unhappy.
There's some sort of dishonorable thing that probably a Stark did. Yeah, we're waiting to find out what it is. But the others showing up might have been a consequence, not the intent of the horn. Maybe it's for something else. But the others just like, oh, they heard it and they were like, oh, somebody's got the magic weapon. We got to go kill him. There's a few different ways that could play out. But it is a very attractive idea that it called the horn. And wow, you guys like it. Yeah, 86% think that it did call the others. That's kind of surprising. I didn't think it'd be that high. That's cool. They're not called the White Runners. They have to take their time. So actually, Christopher Mudd, I think the White Walkers can dematerialize and materialize at will. Tormund sort of makes it sound like they can. They're a mist with teeth. You know, they're always at your heels. You can't see them during the day, but at night there they are. So it's kind of like, yeah, they may have different rules, but the Whites cannot. They cannot teleport. They are literally skeletons that are animated. So they would take a while. And in the books, they're not fast. In the show, they're fast. In the books, they're slow and clumsy. So yeah, the march of the Whites takes a while, 3 to 5 business days. Nissa Nissa gave a cry and then went silent when she goes into the wood. Is that the source of the silent scream? Foil? Yeah, kind of. Also, maybe only certain people can blow the horn and alert them to Jon. Yeah, I do think that it could be a thing where who blows the horn and in what circumstance is important. But to your first idea, yes, Nissa Nissa is parallel to the Weirwood Tree. The Weirwood Tree screaming and being on fire is like Nissa Nissa screaming and being set on fire by Lightbringer. Like, it's the same idea. And this is how man possesses the fire of the gods, whether it's a burning sword or the magic of the Weirwood Tree. Very strong parallel there. So that's where it starts. And Night's Queen does seem like she is either Nissa Nissa's shade from the Weirwood Net or something that parallels that idea really closely. You know, a different Child of the Forest spirit, you know, related to Nissa Nissa. Because I think the whole point of the Great Empire of the Dawn coming here is to get their hands on Child of the Forest magic, but that's a bit of far afield. So, did it call the others? Okay, 84%. So that's a clear. You guys like that idea? That's cool. Who buried it? Oh God, who buried it? So it's either Benjen or Cold Hands / the children. I'm calling that the same option because they work together, and there's really no difference. Either one of them could scurry out of the cave and do this, you know, unobserved. And if they're doing it, probably they would expect that Jon would find it, or they knew that Bloodraven would lead Ghost to it, something. But if Benjen buried it, it's all the other scenarios are on the table where he might have been being chased. Maybe he got it from Craster and was trying to get back to the wall. We had to go the other way. Maybe he had something else he had to do, and so he buried it to come back for it, etc., etc. So yeah, it's either Benjen, Cold Hands / the children, or someone else. And what do you think, Tim? And are there any other possibilities that you think should be on here that could have buried it?
I'm going with Benjen, and again, it's because of the whole instructions not included aspect of this. It seems like it was buried in a haste, and nobody told, like, if it is, assuming it is a White Walker dog whistle, there was no instruction to say, like, don't blow it now, wait till you're ready. So it does seem like it was Benjen who buried it, with the idea that he would come back for it later, and later never came. That's how we come across a lot of, like, artifacts, right? Someone meant to come back for it later, and then something happened, and then there it stayed until finally someone else dug it up. And also because it's pretty close to the surface, right? Like, it's not like they're digging 6 feet under the ground to get to this. Like, it's pretty close to the surface that they find it.
It's buried so that someone can easily unbury it, or that, like I said, maybe Jon could be directed to it via Ghost, and that he would be able to find it. I really like the idea that Benjen was kind of onto something, but also being harried. You know, like he was close. Like, he figured something out. He got a hold of this horn. He found this dragon glass, but he got caught up and wasn't able to make it back to the Watch to explain everything to everyone. That kind of fits with the character arc from a story perspective to me. So I like that idea.
Yeah, it's like Ned it's another example of Ned telling Jon, like, we'll talk about all these things when we see each other again. It never happens. Like, tomorrow never comes.
Yeah. Yep. That makes sense to me. And like you said, no post-it. Yeah, Ghost Ghost could have found it on his own. I am not saying that because Ghost found it, it has to be magic. Like, he's a wolf. His good sense of smell. He might have smelled the cloak. He might have just found the pile. Any number of things. Or Ghost could actually be smarter than a normal wolf because he's magical. Or maybe Bloodraven sometimes inhabits Ghost. That's also possible. I think that's less likely. I think John would know. But can't rule out a little dream sending to Ghost, maybe. So how are we doing here? Benjen with 47, Cold Hands Children 36, someone else 17. So let me ask the chat. If it's someone else, who would it have been? Could it have been some random wildling? I don't know why they would do it. Craster wouldn't bury Night's Watch, Dragonglass. I don't think that makes sense. I do think Craster may have had the horn. We're going to ask that question next, but I don't think he would have buried it. So I'm curious who else could have buried it. It has to be recent. The burial's recent. There's no roots. The soil is loose, and there's no roots growing through that soil. So it was like dug up and buried before plants could grow their roots back into that dirt. So, it can't be more than a year old, really.
Yeah.
And more likely it's a couple of weeks old, or maybe a day old,
A fortnight.
No, Brendan Rivers could not have buried it. Brendan Rivers is not mobile. He would have cold hands or the children do it.
Yeah. He has not been mobile for 25 years now.
No, at least, yeah. Maybe that person was thinking like in the past, but yeah, it's recent. So it's really either Cold Hands or Benjen. I think Cold Hands is more likely than the children, but they're working for the same team. So, all right, that poll's been holding steady. Benjen is the winner. I think that makes the most sense too. And Benjen is kind of like we're waiting to see what happened to Benjen, So this to me is the next one is this is the most delicious question. Did Craster possess the horn? And this goes along with the idea, obviously Benjen would have stolen it from him and then fled and been chased, and maybe that's why he died. There are clues that Craster is the one who killed Benjen. Those black sausages that he has, they might be Benjen and his homies, I don't want to get into that right now, but just know that that's a possibility. And so if Craster has it, then it would be for calling the others to do his baby sacrifices. Remember, we don't see as much in the books as we do on the show. On the show, we see him put the baby down at a tree and walk away, then the White Walker comes. But in the books, we don't see that. We just know that he gives his sons to the wood, to the white cold, and then we have the white tree clue where we see like a burned baby inside the weirwood mouth. Mm-hmm. Now, I have speculated that the White Walkers might not even need to come and get the baby, and that what you do is you put the baby, and I'm sorry, we're talking about babies like that. I apologize. We'll say sacrifice, whatever. You put the sacrifice in the weirwood mouth, and then north of the wall, the others are connected to the weirwoods and can literally absorb the mojo out of it. Because remember, the whole ice spider thing is that it's a frozen weirwood tree where the branches weigh down, and then it looks like a spider. A crouching spider, and they're riding the ice spiders just like the green seers ride the weirwood trees, and Odin rides Yggdrasil. And so if a frozen weirwood is like an ice spider, then you're putting the sacrifice in the mouth of the spider. And what do spiders do? They suck the life out of things. So it could be that, but if it's not that and you actually need to have the others come and collect the baby, then it makes sense you might have a device to call them. And it makes sense that it would be silent because you wouldn't want anyone to hear. This is happening at the Night's Watch, and this is all on the DL, right?
Exactly. This is something you want to keep under wraps. The fact that you're sacrificing your own children to the others. You wouldn't want anyone to know about it. And then there's also the times, too, where it says when Craster doesn't have a son, that's when he gives up a sheep. So it seems like maybe Craster's blowing the horn when he has a son. And then if he doesn't have a son, like time passes and maybe the others just send like a tax collector, and that's when he has to give up the sheep. Like, yo, buddy.
Yeah, and someone is saying, wouldn't Craster have said something about it to, Jor Mormont? No, because if he murdered Benjen over the horn theft, then he wouldn't talk about that. And also, there's plenty of animosity that he has for the Watchmen. Like, he can't stand them. It's neither can the Watchmen stand him. So it's a very uncomfortable agreement to begin with. So
it's the question of like, how much becomes too much? Because Jorah and the Night's Watch, when it comes to Craster, they've been looking the other way on things like the daughter marriage and all that. But eventually, you got to say to yourself, where's the line? Like, draw your line in the snow. And if you openly admit to sacrificing your sons to others, that's probably the line. That's probably where Jorah Mormont will be like, okay, you have outlived your usefulness. Like, we're just going to straight up kill you because nothing is worth this anymore.
And I also like the idea that maybe Benjen wasn't okay with it. Like Jon, you know, like he was forced to accept it, but he wasn't okay with it. And so maybe he, at some point, something happened where he's like, no, I'm going to take this horn from him so he can't do this. So I love that idea, and it fits with the idea that it was used at the Night Fort to call the others.
And it's because, like we've talked about before, tyrants can only last as long as other people are willing to prop them up.
This is true. So this poll is at 62%. So people do think that Craster may have had it. That's cool. That's cool. Yeah, I like the idea. It's very tempting. Very tempting. It definitely fits with the idea that he murdered Benjen, and Benjen's on the run, and he buried it in a hurry. Like, that all kind of makes a nice little story, and it fits with the idea that it calls the others, and it did call the others to the first men. So if I were to boil down all the theories that I put out in that video, that's probably the one I'd go with. It calls the others. Craster had it. It used to be at the Night Fort. Benjen buried it when he was on the run, and that's why it's there. Yeah.
Because if you're also just leaving a newborn baby right out in the trees, and you want the others to collect it, presumably while it's still alive, you know, get it while it's fresh. You want a way to call them to let it know it's there before the baby dies of exposure.
You would have to have, right, otherwise you'd be standing out there with a baby just, like, waiting, like, well, they usually come by on Tuesdays. Yeah, it really does make sense you'd need to summon them, doesn't it?
I'm waiting for the guy, and the guy is never on time.
Yeah, pretty good stuff. It also could even fit with I'm the horn that wakes the sleepers. Like, why is the Night's Watch blowing the horn? Well, it could be that this pact to give the others babies is part of the Long Night Pact that ended the Long Night. You know, there's an idea that Night's King sacrificing children to the others and lying with a White Walker woman or something is last hero, and that's what he had to do to save the day, you know, temporarily or whatever. So yeah, so Craster may have possessed it. Okay, and so who will blow the horn? That's the next question. And this is the small one. Obviously, Euron is probably the leading possibility here.
Candidate.
But Sam does have it, so even if it's stolen, he could get it back, or maybe he'll keep it. He would be the other one, or maybe Jon. You know, Jon's got some hornblower symbolism, and if it really is the Horn of Winter, then he could blow it. So I will turn that over to the chat, but you tell us why it's going to be Euron.
Because Euron is the Plan B Night's King. That seems to be his setup. He's amassing all these magical artifacts to get something like the others on his side would be right up his alley. But then also for it to turn out that he bites off more than he can chew and they just sort of steamroll him. I've talked many times, Euron is the quintessential Lovecraft character. And what happens to these guys whenever they go wandering into the realms of gods, territory that they never meant to be, it never ends well for them. So the idea of Euron trying to call the others and get the others to submit to him only for him to be overtaken with this spirit, whether it be like the spirit of the Night's King or the Great Other, whatever it may be, but that thing to then now pilot Euron and sort of wear a Euron skin suit to become the next Night's King when Jon gets taken away from them, when they realize like when they lose out on Jon and have to go with the Plan B. That seems to be the setup for it.
And so two things here. One, someone in the chat mentioned, you know, is this the reason why the Night's Watch swear to take no sons? I think someone in Discord actually said that. Did I write it down? No, I didn't. But somebody did mention that in the Discord. And then in the chat, somebody's saying, oh, well, it says I shall not father any sons. Doesn't say anything about daughters. And it's sons that the White Walkers want. So That actually kind of it's sort of conspicuous. It could say, "I will father no children."
That's the question, though. Is it only sons that the White Walkers want, or is it just sons that Craster is willing to part with? Because
Oh,
he
they're a
wants the
brotherhood.
father.
I think it has to be sons for some reason. Yeah, probably because Knight's Queen is. I don't know. It's like they can't. I don't know. Actually, I'm just wildly speculating. But Craster certainly only gives his sons, so it kind of does suggest that it is they want. They want the Squishers have a gender bias too. They breed with the women and they eat the boys. So
No, there are tales of human men mating with female Squishers. That's actually the thing on the doorstep. The product of that is male human, female deep one.
yeah, sorry, that's what Nimble Dick says. I should qualify. That's Nimble Dick's version of the Squisher folklore. Yeah.
Mhm.
But the idea is like, yeah, the Night's Watch. It could be that some of them are supposed to father sons and give them to the others, but it does make sense that ostensibly it's like, oh no, don't do that because Knight's King did that and it was very bad. So Euron is winning 67, Sam 23, John 10. There may be some. I don't know if there were any other suggestions in the chat for who else could blow it, but I think it'd be one of those three.
The thing is like these horns could be blown by multiple people. It's also more of a question of who's going to be the first to blow it. And right now, with that one, we already had our answer. John blew it first, right? And when it called the White Walkers, so technically it already has been blown.
Right, and I was just thinking maybe it'll come back around for him to blow it. The when that John would blow it would be at the end again to lead the White Walkers back into the Weirwood net at the very end, and that would make a lot of sense to me.
Taking the hobbits to Isengard.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's how I do. Yeah, leading the others back into the trees. It just seems like I always think taking the hobbits to Isengard. That just seems like what it is.
Yes, Craster's mother is from White Tree, so I definitely think the human sacrifice in the Weirwood at White Tree has something to do with giving children to the others. It does kind of seem like it's implied. Who will blow it? Well, first of all, everyone blows it in Ice and Fire. George loves to make his characters make mistakes and then somehow have to struggle through anyway. But does either Northern Horn wake the Ice Dragon? And I'm talking about Mance's horn, Sam's broken horn, or no, Ice Dragons are silly and everyone should stop trying to put them in the story. What do you think?
At this point, I think the Ice Dragon is more of a symbolic piece than us getting a literal Ice Dragon. I think Viserion is the Ice Dragon in question as the steed of Euron Night's King.
I think that probably makes the most sense. But it is kind of delicious that we could wake the Ice Dragon from under the wall and that breaks the wall and binds a dragon at the same time. But it's probably just a coincidence of all the parallel symbolism.
Because we have so many things that we've talked about. What is encased under the wall? Is it a weirwood base? Is it a black stone base? Now, is it literally an Ice Dragon?
It's like the crypts. Any damn thing could be under there.
Yeah. It's Titans. Like, who knows?
I really do like the idea that the 79 Sentinels symbolize the Weirwoods under the wall, and sacrifices that are made to them. That's pretty good stuff. And again, Michael talks about stuff. Check out his channel. He's got all these theories about the wall. And does either horn wake the Ice Dragon? So we got Ice Dragon skeptics here. Very sharp audience. Very sharp. Does it not going for the Ice Dragon hype? You guys don't believe it. I do think it's possible, but not likely, that there is an Ice Dragon. Like a White Walker made of crystalline ice dragon. I think Viserion's going to serve the role. Yeah. And I think this is something the show ripped from George. I think that's where they got the idea. That there's, they weren't going to do the same Euron. They're working with Night's King. So. Night King, I guess it is in the show. Would Dragonglass harm an Ice Dragon? Probably so. Yeah, I would assume it works on the same principle as the White Walker if it exists. All right, so let's end that poll. And yeah, that is not going to talk about this Doom question right now. And
We already did. Oh,
yeah, the Batman question is for you, though. With all the new shows being announced, it would be cool to see what you and Tim would pick to make a show about in the Ice and Fire universe. So yeah, before we get into that, this ends our horn section, which was most of the stream already. But that's okay. That was fun. Thank you all for participating in that. I got some interesting results there, and you can see the winners highlighted on this list.
yeah.
So,
Well, for me, that answer lays in my next video, which is the ET show. But I will, asterisk if they do the ET show the way that I'm suggesting they do, because there's so little information on what exactly they're going to do. I'm going based upon the current ET situation that George presents in the World Book because of how much it relates to Romance of the Three Kingdoms. I honestly can't say exactly what they're going to do. So my video may actually, at the end of the day, this next video might just end up being just a huge piece of fan fiction more than anything. But it is the way that it's the best way that I could see a ET show actually working because of how it relates both to these stories, but also parallels things we already know. Which I don't want to go into too much detail because I'd be giving it all away, but I'm going to make connections to the current ET situation with things that happened in A Song of Ice and Fire in the main series. And you're going to make the connections. Once you lay them out, they become completely obvious. So
Tim, I really think
that...
oh, sorry, go ahead.
I said, so my answer is like there is a show set in the Far East and ET seems like the best way of doing that.
I also think a UT show might take from stuff like Journey to the West or other classic Chinese or even Japanese mythology, which are, loosely related. So I could see that because he's already doing that with like Amaterasu being the maiden made of light, Sun Wukong, the monkey demon king. I mean, Tyrion is the monkey demon king, but there's also Woman with a Monkey's Tail who's the Yitish Long Night hero. And they still wear monkey tail hats to this day. So, like, a UT show has got to do some Sun Wukong stuff, I would really think. And as far as the question, what would I like to see that's not on the list of shows that's being developed? Like, I really want to see Nymeria. I would love to see Corlys' Voyages. The one that they need to do that they haven't done would really be like the Blackfire Rebellion. Bloodraven, Shara Seastar, Bittersteel, Daemon, Fireball... all that stuff, like Water Gardens, Daenerys, Baelor Breakspear, Maekar. It's just, it seems like House of the Dragon will get there eventually.
So the answer is Reedy Rhaegar says, like, how will the average viewer be interested in an ET show? There's no Starks or anyone there. That is the question that I am setting out to answer in this video. How do you make a ET show appealing to the average mass audience?
Well, I would put forth, consider Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. They intentionally did not hype Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. They did not really tie it to the main series. They didn't put a prophecy knife or a glimpse of Daenerys in there like they did with House of the Dragon. They let Knight of the Seven Kingdoms be its own thing with a different style, different music, and they basically let it be sort of like an underdog so that if it became a hit, it would be like, oh, look at this hit show. And that's kind of how it worked out. And
that point actually gets brought up when we start talking about Corlys show.
Cool. Well, be fluid with me, Tim. Go ahead and just, pull stuff from your notes as we talk about it. And I really think it would make sense if they just made it a different show. You'll hear that it's Game of Thrones related, but that's the whole thing about opening up this universe is creating different stories and tales that aren't chained to the main series, that aren't chained to Daenerys and all that stuff. So, go ahead.
So when it comes to the 9 voyages, we do, unlike the ET show, we actually do have a bit more information about this one. And that is the fact that acclaimed animator Genndy Tartakovsky is set to be the showrunner for this. An upcoming animated prequel series for HBO that chronicles the legendary maritime adventures of Corlys Velaryon. News of Tartakovsky's attachment comes via Deadline and an interview they did with Casey Bloys, who's the chairman and CEO of HBO Max Content. Because HBO is looking for a way to compete. Like before, they were trying to compete with the whole Disney Marvel thing, and it seems like they put a lot of their eggs in the George R.R. Martin basket. Like the Song of Ice and Fire universe is the thing that they want to prop up as their show pony to compete with these other media franchises and all these franchises that are coming up. Might be a little late because Disney and Marvel seem to have kind of dropped the ball in some aspects. I think people have gotten superhero fatigue, but as we saw with A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, these things can be successful if they're done right. So the quote, Bloys would not comment on any of the alleged Game of Thrones development projects. He indicated that the success of the smaller scale, modestly budgeted A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms is informing their development strategy. And coming off of season 1 of Knight of Seven Kingdoms, it was a massive hit. So it seems like that gives more of the green light to go forward with these extended universe projects. So then we get to Nine Voyages. Nine Voyages is initially meant to be a live action show, and it was supposed to be produced by Rome and Gotham showrunner Bruno Heller. But George R.R. Martin revealed in 2024 that the show had switched to animation due to budget concerns. We have moved Nine Voyages, about the legendary voyages of the Sea Snake, over from live action to animation, a move I fully support. Budgetary constraints would likely have made a live action version prohibitively expensive, what with half the show taking place at sea and the necessity of creating a different port every week. From Driftmark to Lys to the Basilisk Isles to Volantis to Karth to, well, on and on and on. There's a whole world out there, and we have a lot better chance of showing it all with animation. And the other key thing as to why an animated Corlys show will do better in an animated medium is because of where exactly we do know that Corlys goes. It's to a lot of these places in the Far East. He's going to go to the Thousand Islands. He's going to see the Deep Ones. Or at least the Deep One hybrids. He's going to see the fish people. This works better animated. And then having someone like Tartakovsky. Yep. Did you want to point him? You're muted. Mute it.
I'm trying so hard to keep this professional. I was going to say, I appreciate you keeping it going there so that I could discreetly use the little girl's room. Yeah, I needed to do that. So thank you. And let's see. It does create an air of mystery, I feel like, when I disappear. So, but no, I was going to push back slightly on the idea that Deep Ones are better animated. And I'm going to do that.
Maybe not better, but easier.
No, I actually do agree with you. I just want to show this real quick. I mean, how can you say no to that? I mean, why?
Classic.
The Sea Snake. Give me like Corlys Velaryon with the subpar white dreadlocks that House of the Dragon's been serving up, universally panned, running into this guy. No, I think the animated show is the way to do it. It definitely, it's going to give them the liberty, because the whole point of the show is not to stay in one place, but rather to show off all the corners of the world, like the quote you just read. And yeah, it's just so you don't have to make a different port each time. That makes sense.
Yeah, because budgetary constraints, you can't reuse sets in a show like this. And also just the physical complications that come with producing a show at sea. That is a whole other realm of things that can go so bad, so wrong. It's why the Battle of the Gullet that's going to open up season 3 of House of the Dragon required so much budget. Like, filming on open water is massively difficult.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was saying in one of my videos recently. Is like, hey, I know there's issues. Look, there's issues. But still, I feel grateful for seeing these big dragon battles and all the stuff. It's pretty damn cool. Um, yeah.
Yeah.
So.
So then I go into Tartakovsky himself. So he's the creator of Dexter's Lab, Samurai Jack. He did Star Wars Clone Wars. He was on Symbiotic Titan. He's the creator of Primal. He also directed for Sony Pictures. He directed the Hotel Transylvania franchise. And then he also worked on, in older projects, he's worked on Powerpuff Girls, Two Stupid Dogs, and Batman the Animated Series. And the whole point of that is Genndy Tartakovsky has receipts, right? This is a man who's shown his work. He's very good in this medium. And then the prime example that I want to pull out of this is Primal. Because of Primal setup, it's set up in an anachronistic vision of prehistory. So you got dinosaurs, you got mammoths, you got Neanderthals, you got post-Iron Age humans. They're all living, all coexisting in this.
That's in the Bible. That's in the Bible. Go ahead.
Well, it's all coexisting in this realm, and it has like elements of science fiction, fantasy, horror, and actually a lot of Lovecraftian horror. And the reason for that is our two main characters in Primal are named Spear and Fang, and that is taken directly from Robert E. Howard. Spear and Fang is a short story by Robert E. Howard, the creator of Conan the Barbarian. First published. So just with the main characters themselves, Genndy's already paying homage to Howard and the Hyborian Age. And then Howard, of course, was close friends with Lovecraft. And then in Primal, they actually hang in the season 1 episode Primal Theory, he actually hangs a whole lampshade on it. They ditch Spear and Fang, and instead they focus on these 19th century English scholars talking about evolutionary theory, and then they have to take on this evolutionary terror. And of course, that is the Lovecraft setup, right? Every time at a Lovecraft story, your main character, it's always this professor, some archaeologist, some anthropologist. It's always some big nerd who has to come upon the big scary thing. And Primal does that. They have a big nerd episode where they have to fight like this prehistoric creature.
Tim, it's the same rule as the human characters in Transformers, the animated show, serve. You know, like they got these giant Autobots and the Decepticons, but it's like we need a kid. And was it like Spark, who's the mechanic? He's like that. It's his job. He repairs the Autobots when they're it's like that's the vector for the audience insert. I do like your points here though. Like if you're picking an animator, it's cool that they've done this different stuff, and particularly stuff that's in some of these veins here. It makes it easy to feel confident about going forward. And I mean, this is all good. This is nothing but good news and exciting stuff to hear about.
Yeah, so the way I envision this is for Corlys show to be stylized like Primal. And trust me, if you get the sound, music, and art direction of Primal onto a Song of Ice and Fire show, give it to me. I want it. I want it so bad. It's going to work so well.
And this is another answer to the question of like, well, how do you sell the show? Well, partially through the animator, you know. Like,
you sell it through Tartakovsky himself.
Yeah. Like from the producers of Game of Thrones, from the animator of Primal.
Exactly.
In a world.
In a world.
So that's so okay, so now, so that's the overview, but now we're going to go into the actual voyages. So this is fun. Where he went and what he did.
Yeah. So we're told Corlys makes 9 voyages, but we only know of 4. However, George, in that quote above, he also mentions other things. So like he says, like the Bosphorus Isles, that's not in the 4, but that does open up the way for Corlys to visit the Bosphorus Isles, maybe even go to the northern portions of Sithorios, right? Like a lot of this very obscure stuff that we only see in the World Book, and the stuff that sounds so fantastical, you know, that comes straight out of Lovecraft, or how Sithorios is like a big homage to Kong Skull Island. These things can all happen because it's animated. It's a lot easier to do it. And this is another point I make in the ET video. When you're going animated and you have things like the Land of the Shrikes and Cities of Bloodless Men, you can go exactly what it says on the tin. If you want to, you can literally throw lizard men and vampires and all that kind of stuff out there. this is the way to do it.
Well, I mean, again, Tim, I will just say that this works too. But no, you're right. And if we think about, as I'm listening to you talk, Tim, I'm thinking about how this is going to hit on screen. Like Corlys Velaryon is a wealthy noble from Westeros with this like really adventurous streak, but he is not Davos or Salador San. Like he is a Westerosi noble who is sailing into these crazy places. So it's going to be pretty interesting to see someone like that thrown into these environments, and all of a sudden, yeah, you're going to be in some places that turn back the clock thousands of years, seemingly, but also modern places like Yee or Karth. You could really do a lot with the show, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So, and then we go into the voyages. So, our first voyage, Corlys sails beyond the Jade Gates to Yee and Leng. He returned with such a wealth of spike, silk, and jade that House Velaryon doubled their wealth. And so, these are what we see. This is how Corlys becomes the richest man in Westeros, is through these voyages and finding these trade routes.
And he went to Leng. Like going to Yee is one thing, but he went to Leng.
He went to Leng.
Did he just go into the I forget the name of the cities on Leng, but the two in the north are like Yitish cities, and it's it's the one in the south that is like the Lengi
That's
natives.
where the native,
the God
because
Leng,
stuff. Yeah, because Leng is like an analog for Taiwan, where you got a lot of the portion is there. There's the Yiti people, then there's also the native Lengi, and then of course people mix all the time. But yeah, it's mostly the south is where the native Lengi still live, and it's in the south is where you'd have those jungle vaults that the old ones are supposedly locked up in.
So let's just go ahead and go to the board here, go to the map. And so Leng Yi and Leng Ma are the Yitish cities, because Yiti colonized and settled it a long time ago. But Turanay in the south is the Lengi city. So which one did Corlys go to is a big...
Yeah, that's the question.
Did he get lost in the jungle? I wouldn't imagine... What's the point of going to Leng if you're just going to go to another Yitish city? Like the point of going to Leng is to to mix it up with the God Empress and almost get killed and go to the jungles and stuff. So let's cross our fingers.
Yeah, if he just went to the north, that's like me crossing the river and going to Jersey. You know, it's not a real difference.
Fair. So on the second voyage, Corlys sails even further and becomes the first Westerosi ever to reach Asshai by the Shadow. Tales say that Corlys lost his love and half his crew in the mysterious city. Corlys was convinced that an old ship in Ashai's harbor was Sunchaser, which Alyssa Farman had sailed into the Sunset Sea west of Westeros. Okay, new Quave theory just dropped. That's Corlys' ex-girlfriend who wandered into the wrong shop in Ashai. Got sold this mask, she put it on, and then it wouldn't come off, and she turned into a witch over the course of several decades.
Yeah. And see, excuse me, this is one that's like, the temptation is there because it's like, one of the ideas that we've had of why George has never taken us to Asshai is because the reality is never going to fit the mystery. Mm-hmm. So this is one of those ones where I'm like kind of waiting in bated breath of like, how are they going to, if they do this, like if this really does happen, we get this Corlys show, we get a voyage to Asshai, how are they going to depict it? Is it going to be as weird and magical and shadowy and grim and all of that as they make it out to be? Or are they going to go like a House of the Dragon route and be like, well, this is what, this is the real interpretation. Some stories are just very far-fetched.
I think it would be easy to keep it in the middle where you'd have like, it's said to be shadowed. So it's not hard to put some mists everywhere and make it so that you can't see the whole city at once. You're not getting a clear view of what's going on. People are furtively shuffling around in the shadows. They have masks on, so you don't know what they're like underneath. Like you can do a fair amount there without fully revealing the mystery. However, I will just say that George, perhaps because he's, not written a main book in the series in 15 years, he has been dropping lore clues in other formats, whether it be House of the Dragon or an interview that he gives where he's like, oh yeah, some people say Aegon had a prophecy. It's like this huge lore dump that we didn't, it wasn't even in a show. It was in an interview. So I do feel like George is not above giving us secrets to Ashai in the Corlys animated show. Not at all.
Yeah. And it is also the idea, like a good horror, the way a good horror works is the idea of the monster is more scary than actually seeing it. That's why you use it sparingly. Mm-hmm. So that's probably, yeah, I would agree. That's probably the direction they're going to go in.
You can still maintain some mystery and reveal some stuff. Like half his crew goes missing. Maybe he never finds out what happened to them. They just go missing. You know? And then he has to leave. Like,
so I can't wait around forever.
And then third voyage, what happened there?
So this is Corlys in the Shivering Sea, becomes the first Westerosi to navigate the Thousand Islands, as well as the first to see Nagai and Mossavi. He visits the secret city of Nefer, and he would have continued further, but his crew threatened mutiny after seeing the people of the Thousand Islands.
Remember, not only are they weird, green-skinned, teeth filed, whatever, they sacrifice sailors to their squamous fish-headed gods. So they are hostile. They're not just weird.
Yeah. And then, of course, so Nefer, the underground city, a haunt of torturers and necromancers. So it's like, you got to look at his crew and be like, look what we're dealing with, man. We got demons, cannibals, necromancers, fish people, Russians. There's nothing human out here. We got to turn back.
We apologize to the Russian members in our audience.
I know. I know there's we get some Eastern European viewers out there. I'm sorry. I'm going to take another pot shot at you in the ET one too when I talk about Mossavi.
Well, shout out Kazakhstan because, just because. So, this is interesting. Yeah. How much of the Squisher lore do we get here? I think you'd make the most. This would be mainly about Nagai, and you'd have some run in with the fish people that would cause the mutiny, which would be more of the drama, threatening a mutiny, and then he turns back. So it's not like a bunch of people need to sleep with the Squishers, and we got to get all squished out and get slime all over us and stuff. They would just be sort of a part of the mix there. It's more about what is in Nagai,
Yeah. There's also, it says that the fish that swim around the Thousand Islands are like, they sound like a shy fish almost. They're misshapen and they're bitter to the taste. So it could also just be the food that makes them mutiny. Like, look, man, we can't keep eating these crappy fish. We got to go back home.
Did you have something about Nagai? You did.
Yeah, it's in the next section. So then finally the ninth voyage. So we don't know anything about the 4 through the 8, so we're going to rely on this show to fill the gaps. But like I said, George did mention Lys, Basilisk Isles, and Karth, so those could be 4 through 8. But it's the ninth voyage. Oh yeah, actually, the ninth voyage he goes to Karth, and he gets elephants. He loads the ships with spices, elephants, and the finest silk. The elephants die at sea during the return voyage. Only 14 of the ships reach Driftmark, but the wealth that remained briefly made House Velaryon the wealthiest family in the Seven Kingdoms, richer than even the Lannisters and the Hightowers.
So how did Corlys fill the hold of the sea snake with gold? Where did he get the gold from? They don't just hand it to you when you sail to ET, like, oh, here's tons and tons of gold. Like, did he do some bad stuff?
Filled the hole. Yeah, because like, is that gold going all the way from Driftmark to Karth, or did he pick it up along the way to then?
I mean, he could have just done it through skillful trading, but he might have done something shady.
There might be a lot. I mean, in between Driftmark and Karth, a lot can happen.
Yeah, piracy, slavery, just killing people and taking their stuff. Are we going to see something like with the Spaniards coming to the New World, where a small group of people with superior weapons overthrows a dynasty? I mean, makes off with tons of gold.
To be fair, it's a small group of people and 150,000 native followers, because they also have a problem with the Aztecs. Like, Cortez gets way too much credit for overthrowing the Aztecs.
I was thinking of the Inca. there,
Yeah.
but it happened a few times. And yeah, there was. Well, we don't need to go into all that history, Tim. I'm just making a loose parallel.
But I do. So it's in the next section. Actually, I do bring up that because we get to our Lovecraft story, the Mound. So the Thousand Islands, we've talked. It's obviously a shadow over Innsmouth parallel. You got fish people. They're fish-headed gods. They fear the sea. They're xenophobic. They fear outsiders. They sacrifice them to their gods. Like there's really no point going more into it. It's obviously shadowed over Innsmouth. The more interesting one, this is the lesser known one that I haven't talked about here yet, is Nefer. So, so Corlys goes and he visits the kingdom of Nagai, and Nagai has been reduced to one city of Nefer because of constant raids by the Jogos Nai. Nefer's the only city left. Nefer, and 9/10 of it is underground. It's called the Secret City. But this is another example of George taking something from Lovecraft and just slightly altering it, because Nagai is just a respelling of Nakai. George does the same thing with his Kadath out in the gray. In Lovecraft, Kadath is in the coal waste and it's spelled Kadath. George does his Kadath out in the gray waste and he replaces the A with an apostrophe. So he just slightly alters the spelling. And he does the same thing again with Nagai. The K just becomes a G. And we go from Nakai to Nagai. And in the story of the Mound, Nagai is an underground city that's divided into 3 realms. The tale is told from a member of, so this is Vasquez de Coronado. So these were the guys that were looking for El Dorado, the lost city of gold.
Okay.
Our focal point is a guy named Panfilo de Zamacona Nunez. They just call him Zamacona. Zamacona is a member of Coronado's party. He splits off from the group. When Coronado gives up on the search, Zamacona is like too glued to the cause. He is so adamant on the wealth and riches of finding this lost city of gold that he's like, okay, well, I'm just going to continue on my own. And he keeps going up north, and he winds up in what is modern day Oklahoma. And this is where he finds the Mound. And the Mound is guarded by 2 sentries. The people who live in the town, they think it's ghosts. Turns out, no, it's actually, the sentries are actually zombies. And this is because of what lays in the Mound. The inhabitants are the men of Zoth. So the first realm of the Mound is Zoth, blue-litten Zoth, a grayish haze through which blue lights glistened, reminiscent of the northern lights. Inhabited by the men of Zoth, these are humanoids descended from a spacefaring race that brought their civilization underground. They have pale, opaque skin, supernaturally blue eyes, and elongated heads. They are highly intelligent, but also decadent and cruel. They practice both slavery and necromancy. They're able to revive the dead. Like I said, the sentries outside the Mound are zombies that they have resurrected. They pit dead warriors against one another for their own amusement. They speak telepathically. They direct thoughts to one another and to visitors, and they're able to turn into mist. So the blue realm of Zoth is heavily White Walker coded.
And it's interesting because Nagai is definitely associated with like necromancy and stuff like that, is it not?
And necromancy and torturers, and slavery is all over Essos, especially out in the Far East. I also know the elongated heads. Well, that doesn't apply to the White Walkers, but still, George breaking it off, and you don't put everything all in one spot. You put bits and pieces and pepper it throughout the world. We just said Nagai has been reduced to attacks from the Jogos Nai, and they're the Coneheads. And then I also threw in here, the Coneheads. Is it originally an SNL
We come
skit?
from France.
Yeah, so Conehead is the anglicized name. Their actual name is Chlorhone, and so I wrote Beldar Chlorhone. That works as a Jogos Nai name. If we think about the name, if we think about our name Jogos Nai, like Beldar, Primat, and Konjab, they all fit the naming scheme. So I really think when George made the Jogos Nai, he was thinking of Dan Aykroyd and Saturday Night Live.
He did give them cone heads.
Yeah.
This is a fact. That's funny. Next time I watch the movie, I'll look for Ice and Fire parallels then. Or it
So
wouldn't have
then
been the movie, really. It would have been the. Well, no, I'm old. When did the Coneheads movie come out? Was it in the
I think it was
90s?
like 92, I think.
Okay,
93.
never mind. That's in the wheelhouse. Mass consumption. Yes. Mass quantities, I believe is what the phrase was. And then
Okay,
Yoth, Red Lytton Yoth, situated below Sath, is currently uninhabited. Carvings and manuscripts found in the vaults of Zin underneath the ruins of the largest Yothic city confirmed that the Yothics were reptilian and quadrupedal. However, they also reveal that these creatures had the means to create and modify new species. So what will we... I was going to say, what will Corlys find under Nagai? Like, perhaps some pretty weird stuff. Go ahead.
Yeah. But also, this is more like George playing with these three realms, right? You got your blue realm, which is other coded. You got your red realm, which is lizard people. And the lizard people also make new creatures. So this is like Valyria, right? And the flesh pits of Gogossos and all of those. And then finally, we get to the third realm of Nakai. Lightless Nakai, the deepest realm of the mound, home of the formless spawn, inky black protoplasmic jelly tentacled creatures that worship black onyx and basalt images. So they worship oily black stone images of Cthulhu and Sithagwa. So the Kraken god and the frog and the toad god. And George does it, the Isle of Toads, oily black stone is a giant toad god, and then we got the sea stone chair. And then we just talked. So we got a blue realm, a red realm, a black realm. One is other coded, one is dragon coded, and now this one's Kraken coded. It's John, Danny, and Euron, three heads of the dragon. There it is again.
So you're going to get Tiresias going again. I'm just going to address the fact that there are... So this is basically implying that Deep Ones are in Nagai, which is right next to the Thousand Islands. And that would kind of make sense. So when we hear that Corlys goes to Nagai, and then the people see the men of the Thousand Islands and they want to leave, maybe there's some Thousand Islanders in Nagai. Maybe there is a Deep One temple down there. Maybe there's a whole connection between those two things. This research would suggest that there is.
Because if we pull up the map again, the Thousand Islands are directly north. So
yeah, and Nagai used to control a much larger area.
Yeah, Nagai, yeah, because it used to be this whole kingdom that's situated in between the the plains of the Jogosnai and Mosavi. So I've always thought of Nagai as like Poland, like stuck in between Germany and Russia. It's always getting overrun.
We apologize to our Polish viewers in the audience.
And then up north is just freaky fish people. So it's like the guy has it rough. And then south is the Bleeding Sea, which
and
probably
the Cannibal
has
Sands, yeah.
And then the Bleeding Sea, the Cannibal Sands, the Grey White. Like the guy is just surrounded on all sides, and the guy can't catch a break.
And what's going to be in Mosavi? Like everything else here is terrible and horrific. Grey Waste, Cannibal Sands, Kadath, the Rend of the Shrikes, the cities of the Bloodless Men, and a big forest. What's in that forest? Nothing good.
I said the scariest thing of all: Slavs,
Russians. Yeah.
Nothing human. Again. I kid our Eastern European viewers. I kid.
No, they're good sports. They're having fun with this, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Now, of course, we should mention. Someone says, "Oh, a lot of cursed places in the world." Yes, so George does intend for some of this to be "Here There Be Dragons." He said, the further you go on the map, the less solid the information is, and they're going on folklore and stuff. However, we know, like City of the Winged Men, well, maybe that's bullshit, or maybe these are the failed experiments of the Bloodstone Emperor and the Great Empire of the Dawn trying to create lizard people. Shrikes are basically lizard people, and so it'd be interesting. I guess, Tim, if I could just finish my thought, what I was just going to say is it'd be interesting to see where they split the difference there between giving us a mundane explanation for something fantastical, but then also maybe showing us some really freaky stuff.
Yeah, and it's the idea. It's something else I bring up in the video that I'm going to do, and I actually have artwork for it. Have you ever seen artwork, right, of like a medieval monk who's never left his little German hamlet, but now he has to draw a picture of an elephant after it's been described to him. If you see the art, how it's horrifying the way they interpret it. But that
I
is
think
the
I have
idea
seen
that
that.
George
It
is
sounds
playing
familiar.
with. Yeah, just look up like medieval drawings of like animals that guys have never actually seen. They're just drawing it based off of descriptions they've gotten it from sailors who claim to have been there.
That's what all the Lovecraftian entities look like. Like you couldn't
Mm-hmm.
draw it from the description. It's got 10 blubbery
Yeah,
arms and 7 mouths. It's like the beast from Revelation only with just more
exactly.
gelatinous content and tentacles. But yeah, they're supposed to
Yeah,
be
you try
incomprehensible, right?
again, like you try and you tell some guy in Hamburg who's never seen a giraffe, but you got to try and describe a giraffe to him, and now he's trying to draw it.
Right. You try to describe Yog Sothoth to someone who's never seen him. It's like, what are they going to draw? Who knows? And with
And then, of
that,
course, the final bit was this is all George playing on the age of exploration. This is the real world, for better or for worse, when you have seafarers and explorers going out of Europe and sailing to the New World as a means of claiming their wealth, claiming their fame, trying to find these trade routes, whether it just be a quicker way to get to India so that the British can use can get all the spices that they never use in their cooking.
see,
That's
Tim, this is what
essentially
happens when people try to draw Lovecraftian monsters. It's just like, what is even going on? You don't want to know. This artist is tentacles and teeth. This is Azathoth here. I kind of love this one.
Yeah, Azathoth is the gatekeeper. Yeah,
This mouth kind of looks like a certain orifice. I'll just say, dark stuff. Yeah, H.R. Giger would approve. Whoops, I didn't mean to do that.
yeah. Someone asked, like, I'm hitting all the Europeans. When was I going to hit the British? Well, there it was. It was the spice joke. What are you going to tell Britain? Your food is terrible. What are you going to tell me that ketchup is spicy? Come on.
Oh,
Now.
they look. First of all, Americans never have to apologize or feel bad for insulting Britain.
For
We had a
insulting the
war,
British.
and now we're friends. So everything is on the table, and they know their food sucks. Like they know that.
I love that, like, when the British say, like, you spell color wrong. And I'm like, yeah, because I removed you.
Tim's Yankee through and through. All right.
I'm Irish. It comes with the territory.
And you know, another place they could find inspiration for Corlys's Nine Voyage, and someone mentioned this in the chat because of current movies being the Odyssey.
Yeah.
You know, Corlys
Yeah.
is very much
It is the Odyssey.
yeah, he's very much an Odysseus character. Because I mean, at least half the time he's trying to get back home, but it's that same vibe. It's like one adventurer that we get to know, and he just comes across weird shit after weird shit, you know.
Yeah. So my
And
family.
also, I'm sorry, Tim. Also, the
Yeah.
Narnia, the Voyage of the Dawn Treader. You might, similar thing. Each island is different and has its own little mysteries. You could see a Narnia influence in there.
Yeah. Someone was asking. So we've been able to trace my Irish roots back to Cork. So the Irish portion of my family came over during the potato famine, which potato famine was caused by a parasitic fungus, which is a very strange name to call the British, but that's how we got here.
Yep. Yeah. You being an Irish American have extra excuse never to apologize to the British. Yeah.
To always insult the British every chance I get.
That's great. That's great. And yeah. So
Then
while we do not
stick a-
apologize to our British audience, we do appreciate your good humor. And also losing that war so we could be a country. Thank you for that. So, okay, and then the rest of this is your notes on the horns. Is there anything you didn't get? I think you got all this, right?
We got all of this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Terrific. Well, there you go. And then just since we do have this one random thing here, I was curious if you had, if you knew about this, excuse me. It's from Ariel Eve Machado. I'm not sure what year we found out about the doom of Valyria, but the theory of how it happened is exactly like something outlined in Cage Baker's book, The Anvil of the World, where a character who is a supernatural weapon, sees the way he could destroy his entire civilization with a few well-placed assassinations to set off a chain of volcanoes. Also, George did know Cage Baker and even wrote a few recommendations for her books and a tribute to her when she died. That's interesting. Do you know who that is by any chance?
I've never heard of the Anvil of the World. Never read it.
Well, sound off in the chat if you know anything about that story. Let's look up real quick and see when it was written to see who might be working with whose idea, if you will. And this is definitely something famous authors do. They borrow each other's ideas, especially if they are friends. Cage Baker, Anvil of the World. When was it made? 2004 fantasy novel. So she would be riffing on George's.
Yeah, because that's when Feast come out by that point? 2004.
Yeah. Yes. No, I don't know. Actually, let me check. I think
we were
so.
at least 3 books. We were at least 3 books in by 2004.
God, I think Feast for Crows is right after that, actually. 2005. They may have been chatting while they were writing the books, for all we know. If George is mentioning her and writing forewords for her, that means they're friends. So that's interesting. They were kind of being written around the same time, essentially. Yeah, that's cool. I definitely think the idea originally comes from Elric, because Elric passes judgment on his own civilization and leads an army into Melniboné. Like he does that. And then it is during that event where he accidentally kills Cimmeril. You know, the Irkun sort of like dodges out of the way so that he strikes Cimmeril. You know, it's a whole thing. He doesn't kill her on purpose, but it's a huge influence for Azor Ahai and Nissa Nissa, as well as the idea of a dragon lord passing judgment on his own empire. And Valyria is Melniboné even more than it's Atlantis or Roman Empire or Nazis with dragons. It's all those things, but it's Melniboné first and foremost. So I definitely like the idea that Aenar Targaryen helped the Faceless Men bring down Valyria. That would be very akin to Elric, working with the younger kingdoms, I think is whoever it was.
Yeah, because I haven't read all of Elric, but I have been reading it, and the more I read it, the more I'm like, okay, I see where you got this now from George. And it's always fun, and that's the fun of reading the older stories and connecting the dots, and that's exactly what you find on my channel, is connecting the dots back to like Lovecraft and Howard. And like I said, I am getting into Elric, and the more I read, the more I learn about that too. In fact, actually, the next stream that I do, so after the ET video is out, the next stream that I'm going to do is I want to do a brand stream. And not just our brand, but I want to talk about brand the archetypes. And while we're doing that, I want to read, I recently got into Bran Mac Morn. So Robert E. Howard, the creator of Conan the Barbarian, he also created Bran Mac Morn, the last king of the Picts. And there's 5 Bran Mac Morn stories, but one of them, Worms of the Earth. Oh my God, George took a lot from it. Like he cribbed a lot from Worms of the Earth. In fact, it's one of the things I'd actually would like to read it with you, because I just want to see the look on your face when you start making the realizations I made when you read Worms of the Earth.
What's amazing is how he can put such clear nods to so many things all in one story and have it be coherent. Like that's, it's really something. Yeah. Well, that's cool. I would like to hear about that sometime. So, file that away, Tim, for an idea for a future segment.
Yeah. I'll give you a Cliff Notes version of Worms of the Earth sometime. And then you let me know if you're interested in reading it, because it's a good story.
I would have to read it, but I have plenty of Audible credits I can use. That's not a problem. And one of the nice things about our little Westeros Talk format is that we can do, something that doesn't have to take a whole like I don't know if I want to do a whole stream on Corlys's Voyages, but it was
Mhm.
nice to go through them here. So like some people have asked for other George Martin stories, like Song for Laia. Can you talk about that? We could do a segment on a stream about that. So yeah, we'll do Howl's Castle. And what was the one you were just mentioning?
It's Worms of the Earth by Robert E. Howard. It's one of the 5 Bran MacMorn stories.
That's cool. And obviously that's drawing on the various brands from Irish and
Various
Welsh folklore.
Yeah, and the Bran arc, because I mentioned earlier in the stream, like George is using the brands at the various different brands because it's such a repeating name throughout the Stark lineage as archetypes. There's all of the different kinds of brands, and now we have our current Bran, who is Bran the Broken, but also possibly the last king, just as Bran MacMorn is the last king of the Picts.
The chat says they would genuinely love to have a smoke with Tim. Seems like a great laugh. Yeah, I'm no fun to smoke with. I mean, I'm basically a bring down. But Tim,
just remember, people, I'm sober. Like when we do these streams, all of these things I say, I'm doing blind stinking sober.
yeah, he really means this shit. Okay, so let's see here. There was something else I was going to touch on. Oh, somebody in the chat remarked that, Lucifer means Lightbringer was a cooler name than David Lightbringer. I agree. I did change it because I was curious if that was limiting my reach. And also because I have ADHD. And I'm probably going to change my name again. Well, he's changed the name of the channel. And I'll probably just go by my regular name. But we'll worry about that when we cross that bridge. So I'm a moving target, baby. I got ADHD. Don't ask me to stay the same. That's not what I do. Yeah, I know you guys want to hang out and smoke with me, and you're just throwing Tim a bone. I know. I told you I was in a mood today. I'm catty today. So, all right, guys. Well, I think that'll pretty much do it. This has been a fun stream, and thank you, Tim, for bringing this. I'm a little more excited about the Corlys show now that I've thought about the Voyages. Like, these are really some interesting places to go to.
Yeah, and I would say just check out some. I'm not saying you have to watch all of Primal. I would suggest though, and anyone in the chat too, just check out some clips on YouTube just to see like the animation style, the sound direction, the music choices, and I think you'll understand what I'm getting at. Why I think it would work great for A Song of Ice and Fire.
I almost started Primal the other day when I was looking for something to watch, so I think I will do that. Yeah,
it's fun.
I should watch the Moving Castle. Is that an animated movie?
So Howl's Moving Castle. The book is by Diana Wynne Jones, but there is a Studio Ghibli adaptation. But they changed some things. Like the Witch of the Waste in the movie is a completely different character from the book.
They always do change some things, don't they, Tim? That's cool.
But Studio Ghibli movies are still fun. They're a treat to the eye.
Of course, legendary Studio Ghibli, and as I always like to remind people, the animators that created the original Hobbit and Lord of the Rings movies.
Oh, Ralph Bakshi.
What's that?
Like the Ralph Bakshi version of the Hobbit?
I don't know that name. I'm talking about the animated Hobbit that everyone has seen, with all the good songs and stuff.
I think that's the Bakshi version.
So that was Studio Ghibli before they were Studio Ghibli. Yeah, the same people that did that became part of Studio Ghibli. So, Rankin Bass, I think that's the right name. I'm bad at this stuff. There is a connection there, so you guys can look it up if you want the whole thing. But
yeah, Rankin Bass is the ones who did like Year Without a Santa Claus and all those old stop motion holiday movies.
Yeah, I would love to see Ice and Fire done in that exact style. What was that called? The rotoscope? Yeah, the rotoscoping, and also the music. Like, it's not just the it's the music and the sensibilities of that. Just the sound when they draw the Orc Slayer swords and stuff, the Elrond and the moonlight on the maps, like. That thing is just etched into my mind in such a way. It's just so colorful. It has so much personality. I would love to see some Ice and Fire content done like that. It won't happen. I'm just throwing it out there, you know. Who knows? All right, guys. Well, thank you for joining me. Tomorrow is Battles Day. Dance of the Dragon Battle documentary. It's back. The one I took down a week and a half ago. We're going to put it out tomorrow. The last trailer is going to drop this week at some point. And so I probably will do a lot. Not probably. I definitely will be going live within a couple hours of the trailer being dropped, as I always do. So if you see the Hot Dragon trailer, come and check my YouTube channel, because I will either be streaming or you will see a stream for later that day, and we'll break it down and all that. So I'm going to put out the battles video on Monday, breaking down all the battles from Fire and Blood that will be adapted or could be adapted this season. And yeah, very proud of it. We worked real hard on it. And then I screwed it up by putting murder in the title, and YouTube buried it. So pulled it down in case you missed it, putting it back up on Monday. And then some point during the week, we'll jump on the trailer, assuming it comes out. This will be the final trailer, so it's going to have some new stuff, you know, not just the same old scenes repackaged. And we're like a month away from House of the Dragon, so we can start getting excited officially now, I think. And then in 2 weeks, I'll have that big First Men video. And the week after that, folks, Dothraki Part 2. It has been recorded, it is in the works, and that is coming as well. So we've got some big Ice and Fire. Like, the First Man video is going to be 1 hour and 47 minutes. Dothraki 2 is going to be around 1 hour and 10 minutes. So I've got 3 hours of Ice and Fire content coming, even while we get hyped for House of the Dragon. And that's because I love you guys. So make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of that. Go check out Grey Waste Tim's channel. If you're not subscribed, subscribe to his channel. He's got a lot of good content. He also does fun live streams from time to time on Saturdays. It's pure chaos and joy. So again, thank you, Tim, for bringing this to the channel. And yeah.
Yep.
That'll do it. All right, guys. I will see you next time. And oh, I've hidden the end stream button. Cheers.